Fact 1. The dawn of agriculture. Civilization as we know it began around 10,000 years ago with the agricultural revolution. Before this momentous shift, humans lived as nomadic hunter-gatherers for hundreds of thousands of years, following seasonal patterns and animal migrations. The decision to settle in one place and cultivate crops was perhaps the most transformative choice in human history. In the Fertile Crescent, between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, people began deliberately planting seeds, nurturing crops, and harvesting grain. This seemingly simple act changed everything. Permanent settlements arose because farmers needed to stay near their fields. Food surpluses accumulated, allowing some people to specialize in crafts other than food production. Population density increased dramatically. The social complexity we call civilization emerged from these farming communities. Interestingly, early agriculture was actually harder work than hunting and gathering, with less diverse nutrition and more disease from close animal contact. Yet once begun, there was no turning back. The agricultural revolution spread across the globe, transforming human societies wherever it took root. Fact 2. Mesopotamia's gift. The Sumerians of ancient Mesopotamia created one of the world's first writing systems around 3400 BCE. In the fertile lands between two great rivers, scribes began pressing wedge-shaped marks into soft clay tablets, creating what we now call cuneiform. Initially, writing served mundane purposes, tracking grain stores, recording temple offerings, documenting transactions. But this practical tool evolved into something profound. Writing allowed knowledge to transcend individual memory and oral tradition. Laws could be codified and consulted. Stories could be preserved exactly across generations. Administrative complexity became possible, enabling larger, more organized societies. The Epic of Gilgamesh, one of humanity's oldest surviving stories, comes to us through these clay tablets. Writing represents a threshold moment when human consciousness could externalize itself, creating a collective memory independent of any individual mind. What began as accountant's marks became the foundation of history itself. Without writing, everything we know about ancient civilizations would be limited to archaeological fragments and guesswork. The written word allowed civilizations to build upon previous knowledge rather than constantly rediscovering it. Fact 3. The wheel's revolution. The wheel was invented around 3500 BCE, probably in Mesopotamia, though not initially for transportation. The earliest wheels were potter's wheels, used to create symmetrical ceramic vessels more efficiently than hand building. Only later did someone realize that wheels could move heavy loads across land. This innovation transformed trade, warfare, and daily life. Suddenly, goods could travel farther and faster than human or animal backs could carry them. Cities could grow larger because food could be brought in from distant farms. Armies could transport supplies and siege equipment. The wheel seems obvious to us now, but it required abstract thinking, the concept of rotational motion, the engineering of axles and bearings, and the creation of smooth roads to make wheeled transport worthwhile. Interestingly, some advanced civilizations like the Inca never developed wheeled vehicles, partly because their mountainous terrain made them impractical. The wheel's true genius lies not in the circular object itself but in the understanding of rotation and the infrastructure needed to use it effectively. This simple innovation ripples through every aspect of modern civilization. Fact 4. Egyptian timelessness. Ancient Egypt maintained a remarkably stable civilization for over 3,000 years along the Nile River. While empires rose and fell around them, Egyptian culture remained fundamentally consistent from around 3100 BCE to 30 BCE. This extraordinary longevity came from geography. The Nile's predictable annual floods provided reliable agriculture, while deserts on both sides protected against invasion. Egyptian civilization developed a deep sense of continuity and cosmic order called Ma'at. Pharaohs weren't just rulers but divine intermediaries maintaining universal balance. The pyramids, built as eternal resting places, embody this civilization's relationship with time and permanence. Egyptian religion promised immortality through proper burial and preservation, leading to mummification techniques so sophisticated that we can still see the faces of people who died thousands of years ago. Writing hieroglyphs on tomb walls, Egyptians believed they could speak across eternity. Their civilization teaches us that stability isn't stagnation. Egyptian art, architecture, and knowledge evolved continuously within a consistent cultural framework. As you rest tonight, consider how these ancient people contemplated eternity beside the same moon and stars you see now. Fact 5. Indus Valley Mystery. The Indus Valley civilization flourished from 3300 to 1300 BCE in what is now Pakistan and northwest India, yet we know remarkably little about them. Unlike Mesopotamia and Egypt, they left no grand temples or royal tombs to tell their story. Instead, they built sophisticated cities with advanced urban planning. Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa featured grid-patterned streets, standardized brick sizes, complex drainage systems, and multi-story buildings. Public baths suggest ritual importance of cleanliness. Weights and measures were standardized across hundreds of miles, indicating centralized authority or shared cultural practices. Yet their writing system remains undeciphered, leaving their stories silent. We don't know what language they spoke, what gods they worshipped, or how their society was organized. No palaces or weapons of war have been found, suggesting perhaps a more egalitarian or peacefully organized society than their contemporaries. The civilization's decline around 1900 BCE remains mysterious, possibly climate change, shifting rivers, or other environmental factors. The Indus Valley people remind us that sophisticated civilization doesn't require monumental architecture or military conquest. Their enigmatic legacy speaks to how much of human history remains unknown, buried beneath centuries of silence. Fact 6. Chinese continuity. Chinese civilization developed largely independently along the Yellow River, creating continuous cultural traditions that persist to this day. Around 1600 BCE, the Shang dynasty established patterns that would define Chinese civilization for millennia. Ancestor worship, divination practices, bronze working, and early forms of Chinese writing appeared during this period. Oracle bones, turtle shells and animal bones used for divination, provide our earliest examples of Chinese characters. The concept of the mandate of heaven emerged, justifying rulers' authority through cosmic approval that could be withdrawn for misconduct. This created a tradition where dynasties rose and fell, but Chinese civilization itself remained continuous. Unlike the West, where Rome's fall created a cultural rupture, Chinese civilization maintained linguistic, philosophical, and cultural continuity across political changes. Confucianism, Taoism, and other philosophical traditions developed over 2,500 years ago still influence modern Chinese society. The examination system selecting officials based on merit rather than birth was revolutionary. Chinese innovations, paper, printing, gunpowder, the compass, transformed the world. This civilization demonstrates how cultural continuity can persist despite political upheaval, maintaining identity across vast time and space. Fact 7. Phoenician voyagers. The Phoenicians, sailing from coastal cities in modern Lebanon around 1500 BCE, became the Mediterranean's greatest mariners and traders. These merchant adventurers established trading posts and colonies across the Mediterranean, from Cyprus to Carthage to the Iberian Peninsula. They traded cedar wood, purple dye extracted from murex snails, glasswork, and metalwork. Their ships ventured beyond the Mediterranean, possibly reaching Britain for tin and even circumnavigating Africa. But their greatest gift to civilization was the alphabet. Around 1050 BCE, Phoenician scribes developed a writing system where symbols represented individual sounds rather than whole words or syllables. This alphabetic principle was revolutionary. Instead of memorizing thousands of characters, one could write any word with just 22 letters. The system was so efficient that it spread rapidly. Greeks adapted it, adding vowels. Romans modified the Greek version, creating the Latin alphabet. Most modern alphabets descend from this Phoenician innovation. The simplicity of alphabetic writing democratized literacy, allowing more people to read and write. The Phoenicians themselves left few monuments, but their alphabet ensures that their influence persists in every word you read. As darkness falls, remember these ancient sailors navigating by stars, connecting distant peoples and spreading the gift of the alphabet. Fact 8. Greek democracy's birth. Ancient Athens, around 508 BCE, experimented with democracy, ruled by the people rather than kings or aristocrats. The reformer Cleisthenes reorganized Athenian society to break aristocratic power, creating a system where citizens could participate directly in government. The assembly, where any citizen could speak and vote, made major decisions. Officials were often chosen by lottery rather than election, on the theory that any citizen was capable of service. This direct participation fostered intense political engagement and debate. Democracy had limitations: women, slaves, and foreigners couldn't participate, and Athens was small enough that direct democracy was practical. Yet the principle that legitimate government derives from citizen consent rather than divine right or conquest was revolutionary. Athens showed that ordinary people could govern themselves, that public debate and persuasion could replace violence in political conflict. Greek drama, philosophy, art, and architecture flourished in this atmosphere of freedom and civic participation. The word democracy itself is Greek, demos, people, and kratos, power. Though Athens' democracy was imperfect and eventually fell, its example echoed through history, inspiring modern democratic movements. The idea that citizens should participate in their own governance remains one of civilization's most powerful and challenging ideals. Fact 9. Persian tolerance. The Persian Empire, established by Cyrus the Great around 550 BCE, became the ancient world's largest empire through an unusual strategy: tolerance and respect for local customs. Unlike conquerors who imposed their culture, the Persians allowed subject peoples to maintain their religions, languages, and traditions. Cyrus freed the Jews from Babylonian captivity and helped rebuild their temple in Jerusalem. This religious tolerance was enshrined in the Cyrus Cylinder, sometimes called the First Declaration of Human Rights. The Persian Empire connected diverse peoples through an efficient road system, standardized coinage, and a postal service. The royal road stretched over 1,600 miles, facilitating communication and trade. Provincial governors called satraps administered local affairs while paying tribute to the central government. This system balanced local autonomy with imperial unity. Persian culture synthesized influences from conquered peoples: Mesopotamian learning, Egyptian art, Greek craftsmanship. The empire's cosmopolitan nature created unprecedented cultural exchange. Zoroastrianism, the Persian religion emphasizing the eternal struggle between good and evil, influenced later religions including Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. The Persian model showed that empires could endure through respect rather than oppression, through unity and diversity rather than forced uniformity. Their approach to governance influenced later empires and remains relevant to multicultural societies today. Fact 10. Alexander's fusion. Alexander the Great's conquests from 334 to 323 BCE created a vast empire stretching from Greece to India, but his greater legacy was cultural fusion. Alexander didn't just conquer, he founded cities, promoted intermarriage between Greeks and locals, and spread Greek culture while absorbing local traditions. This synthesis created Hellenistic civilization, blending Greek, Persian, Egyptian, and Indian elements. Alexandria in Egypt became a cosmopolitan center of learning, housing the famous Library of Alexandria. Greek became the common language of educated people across the Eastern Mediterranean and Near East. Hellenistic scientists made remarkable advances. Eratosthenes calculated Earth's circumference, Euclid systematized geometry, Archimedes discovered mathematical and physical principles still studied today. Greek philosophical schools spread eastward while Eastern religious ideas influenced Greek thought. Buddhism may have influenced Hellenistic philosophy, while Greek artistic styles influenced Buddhist sculpture. Alexander's empire fragmented after his death at age 32, but the cultural blending persisted. Hellenistic civilization preserved and transmitted Greek learning to future civilizations. This period demonstrates how conquest can lead to unexpected cultural creativity when different traditions meet and merge. Alexander's military achievements were temporary, but the civilizational synthesis he initiated shaped the Mediterranean world for centuries. Fact 11. Roman engineering. The Romans, building an empire from the Mediterranean to Britain, were master engineers whose works still stand today. Roman roads, engineered for military efficiency and trade, stretched over 250,000 miles at the empire's height. Many modern European roads follow Roman routes laid down 2,000 years ago. Roman aqueducts brought fresh water to cities from distant sources, using precise gradients to maintain flow. The Pont du Gard in France still stands, Its 3 tiers of arches a testament to Roman engineering. Romans invented concrete that could set underwater, enabling harbor construction and massive buildings. The Parthenon in Rome, completed in 126 CE, features a concrete dome larger than any built until modern times, with an oculus open to sky that still doesn't leak despite centuries of rain. Roman innovations included central heating, apartment buildings, public baths, and sewage systems. Their engineering mindset was practical: build things that work and endure. Roman infrastructure enabled economic prosperity, military control, and urban life on unprecedented scales. Many Roman structures outlived the civilization that built them, continuing to serve new societies. As you rest tonight, consider how Roman engineering principles, durability, functionality, systematic planning, still guide infrastructure development worldwide. Fact 12. The Silk Road. The Silk Road, established around 130 BCE, connected east and west through an extensive network of trade routes. Chinese silk, so valued in Rome that it was worth its weight in gold, gave these routes their name. But the Silk Road carried far more than silk: spices, precious metals, glassware, paper, and gunpowder traveled westward, while gold, silver, wool, and horses went east. Ideas traveled too. Buddhism spread from India to China along these routes, transforming as it absorbed local traditions. Artistic styles cross-pollinated. Mathematical and astronomical knowledge circulated. Technologies like papermaking moved from China to the Islamic world to Europe, revolutionizing record-keeping and learning. The Silk Road wasn't a single road but a network of routes crossing deserts, mountains, and steppes. Merchants rarely traversed the entire distance. Goods passed through many hands, each taking profit. Caravanserais, roadside inns, provided rest and safety. The exchange wasn't always peaceful. Diseases also traveled these routes, including the Black Death. Yet the Silk Road demonstrates how trade creates connections deeper than commerce, fostering cultural exchange and mutual influence. Civilizations weren't isolated but continuously interacted, borrowing and adapting from each other. Fact 13. Mayan mathematics. The ancient Maya, flourishing in Mesoamerica from 2000 BCE to 1500 CE, developed sophisticated mathematics including the concept of zero. Mayan mathematics used a vigesimal, base 20, system unlike our decimal, base 10, system. They represented numbers with combinations of dots and bars, with a shell symbol representing zero, a mathematical concept that appeared in Mayan civilization before it did in Europe. This mathematical sophistication enabled the Maya to create incredibly accurate calendars. They tracked planetary movements with precision that amazed later astronomers. The Mayan long count calendar could track dates over 5,000 years. Their astronomical observations, made without telescopes, correctly calculated Venus's orbital period and predicted eclipses. Mayan city-states built towering pyramids and elaborate palaces in the jungle. They developed a complex writing system combining logographic and syllabic elements. Yet Mayan civilization had no metal tools, wheeled vehicles, or draft animals. Their achievements came through human labor and intellectual brilliance. The civilization's collapse around 900 CE remains debated. Climate change, warfare, or environmental degradation may have contributed. The Maya remind us that civilizational complexity doesn't follow a single path, and sophisticated knowledge can develop in surprising contexts. Fact 14. Roman law. Roman law, codified and systematized over centuries, became the foundation of legal systems worldwide. Early Roman law was customary and unwritten, applied inconsistently. The 12 Tables, around 450 BCE, first codified laws publicly, protecting citizens from arbitrary judgments. As Rome's empire grew, legal principles evolved to govern diverse peoples and complex situations. Roman jurisprudence developed concepts fundamental to modern law: contracts, property rights, inheritance, torts, and legal procedure. The principle that defendants are innocent until proven guilty emerged from Roman law. Legal experts called jurists analyzed cases and developed legal reasoning, creating a professional legal tradition. Emperor Justinian's codification in 534 CE, called the Corpus Juris Civilis, preserved Roman legal wisdom for future civilizations. When medieval Europe rediscovered these texts, they provided sophisticated legal frameworks for emerging nation-states. Roman law influenced civil law systems across Europe, Latin America, and beyond. The common law system of England and America, while developing differently, also absorbed Roman legal concepts. Roman law's emphasis on written codes, legal reasoning, and systematic principles shaped how modern societies understand justice and governance. Legal ideas first articulated in ancient Rome still structure how we resolve disputes and organize society. Fact 15. The printing press. Johannes Gutenberg's movable type printing press, developed around 1440 in Germany, revolutionized the spread of knowledge. Before printing, books were copied by hand, making them rare and expensive. A single Bible might take a year to copy. Gutenberg's innovation, individual metal letters that could be arranged, inked, pressed onto paper, then rearranged, made book production dramatically faster and cheaper. His first major work, the Gutenberg Bible, demonstrated printing's potential. Within decades, printing spread across Europe. Books became affordable for middle-class people. Ideas could spread rapidly beyond elite circles. The Protestant Reformation succeeded partly because Luther's writings could be quickly printed and distributed. Scientific knowledge accelerated as researchers could share findings efficiently. Literacy increased as books became available. Standardized spelling and grammar emerged as printed books created uniform texts. National languages strengthened while Latin's monopoly on learning weakened. Printing democratized knowledge in ways that changed civilization's trajectory. Mass communication began with Gutenberg's press. The idea that information should be widely accessible, that common people could access knowledge previously restricted to elites, transformed societies. Every book, newspaper, and printed document traces ancestry to Gutenberg's workshop in Mainz, where metal letters first pressed words into paper at civilization-changing scale. Fact 16. Islamic Golden Age. From the 8th to 14th centuries, Islamic civilization experienced a golden age of learning, art, and science while much of Europe struggled through the medieval period. The House of Wisdom in Baghdad became a center where scholars translated Greek, Persian, and Indian texts into Arabic, preserving knowledge that might otherwise have been lost. Islamic scholars made groundbreaking advances. Al-Khwarizmi developed algebra, itself an Arabic word. Ibn al-Haytham founded modern optics. Al-Razi and Ibn Sina, Avicenna, advanced medicine with systematic observations and treatments. Arabic numerals, actually borrowed from India but transmitted through Islamic civilization, revolutionized mathematics by replacing clumsy Roman numerals. Astronomical observations in Islamic observatories improved understanding of planetary motion. Islamic architects created stunning buildings like the Alhambra and Dome of the Rock, featuring intricate geometric patterns and calligraphy. Islamic civilization synthesized knowledge from conquered territories and trading partners, adding original discoveries and innovations. When Europeans later accessed this learning through translations, it sparked their own scientific revolution. Coffee, chess, and countless scientific terms entered European languages from Arabic. The Islamic Golden Age demonstrates how civilizations rise when they embrace learning from diverse sources and when they value knowledge, inquiry, and artistic expression. Fact 17. The Black Death. The Black Death, sweeping through Europe and Asia from 1347 to 1353, killed an estimated 75 to 200 million people, perhaps one-third of Europe's population. This bubonic plague, carried by fleas on rats that traveled trade routes from Asia, devastated medieval civilization. Entire villages disappeared. Cities lost half their populations. The death toll was so overwhelming that bodies piled in streets and mass graves couldn't be dug fast enough. Religious faith shook as prayers seemed unanswered. Social order collapsed in places. Yet paradoxically, the plague's aftermath transformed European civilization. Labor shortages strengthened workers' bargaining power, beginning feudalism's decline. Land became available, wealth redistributed. The Catholic Church's authority weakened when its clergy couldn't prevent or explain the plague. This erosion of traditional authority contributed to the coming Renaissance and Reformation. Medical understanding evolved as physicians sought natural rather than supernatural explanations. Quarantine practices developed. The plague demonstrated civilization's fragility but also resilience. Societies rebuilt, learning from catastrophe. This pandemic, though devastating, contributed to the transition from medieval to early modern Europe. It reminds us how disease can reshape civilizations, and how humans rebuild even after unimaginable loss. Fact 18, Renaissance rebirth. The Renaissance, beginning in 14th century Italy and spreading across Europe, marked a rebirth of classical learning and a flowering of human creativity. Wealthy Italian city-states like Florence, enriched by trade and banking, became cultural centers where artists and thinkers flourished under patronage. Renaissance humanists studied classical Greek and Roman texts, embracing ideas about human potential and dignity. This intellectual movement valued individual achievement, observation of nature, and secular learning alongside religious faith. Leonardo da Vinci embodied the Renaissance ideal: artist, scientist, engineer, anatomist, inventor. His notebooks filled with observations of nature, sketches of inventions, and artistic studies. Michelangelo's sculptures and Sistine Chapel ceiling demonstrated unprecedented mastery of human form. Brunelleschi engineered Florence's dome using mathematical principles. Perspective in painting created realistic depth. Renaissance artists studied anatomy, optics, and proportion scientifically. The printing press spread Renaissance ideas beyond Italy. Shakespeare's plays explored human nature with psychological depth. Renaissance architecture revived classical styles while innovating. This period's emphasis on human potential, direct observation, and creative expression shaped modern Western civilization. The Renaissance reminds us that civilizations can consciously choose to revive and reinterpret their past while creating something new. Fact 19, the Age of Exploration. European exploration from the 15th to 17th centuries connected previously isolated civilizations, creating the first truly global exchange. Portuguese navigators, seeking trade routes to Asia, pioneered oceanic exploration. Vasco da Gama reached India by sailing around Africa. Christopher Columbus, sailing for Spain, encountered the Americas in 1492, though he died believing he'd reached Asia. Magellan's expedition, 1519 to 1522, first circumnavigated the globe, proving Earth's spherical nature experientially. These voyages connected civilizations that had developed independently for millennia. The Columbian Exchange saw crops, animals, and diseases move between hemispheres. Potatoes, tomatoes, and corn traveled from the Americas to Europe and Asia, eventually feeding billions. Wheat, horses, and cattle went westward, transforming American agriculture. Tragically, diseases like smallpox devastated American populations lacking immunity. European colonization followed exploration, with profound consequences still felt today. The Age of Exploration demonstrates how technological advances, better ships, navigation tools, maps, enable civilizations to expand their reach. It also shows how contact between civilizations can be simultaneously creative and destructive, bringing both cross-cultural fertilization and catastrophic conflict. Fact 20. The Scientific Revolution. The Scientific Revolution, from the 16th to 18th centuries, fundamentally changed how civilizations understand nature and knowledge. Earlier natural philosophy relied on ancient authorities and religious doctrine. The scientific revolution emphasized observation, experiment, and mathematical description. Copernicus proposed that Earth orbited the Sun, not vice versa, challenging both ancient astronomy and religious teaching. Galileo used telescopes to observe Jupiter's moons and Moon's mountains, supporting heliocentric theory through evidence. His conflict with the Church symbolized science's growing independence from religious authority. Kepler discovered mathematical laws governing planetary motion. Newton unified terrestrial and celestial mechanics through universal gravitation and calculus, showing that mathematical laws govern natural phenomena. Francis Bacon promoted empirical observation and inductive reasoning. The scientific method emerged: hypothesis, experiment, analysis, conclusion. This systematic approach to knowledge generation proved extraordinarily powerful. Scientific societies formed where researchers shared findings. Science became collaborative and cumulative, each generation building on previous discoveries. The scientific revolution's emphasis on evidence-based knowledge, skepticism toward authority, and mathematical precision created the foundation for modern science and technology. It represents a civilizational choice to understand nature through observation and reason rather than tradition and revelation. Fact 21. The Enlightenment. The 18th century Enlightenment championed reason, individual rights, and progress, reshaping political philosophy and social organization. Enlightenment thinkers like John Locke argued that governments derive authority from consent of the governed, not divine right. People possess natural rights to life, liberty, and property that governments should protect. Montesquieu proposed separating governmental powers to prevent tyranny. Rousseau's social contract theory influenced revolutionary thinking. Voltaire championed religious tolerance and free speech. These ideas challenged traditional authority, monarchy, aristocracy, established churches. Enlightenment philosophy emphasized that humans could improve society through reason and reform rather than accepting hierarchy as divinely ordained. The American and French revolutions applied Enlightenment principles, establishing republics based on popular sovereignty and written constitutions. The Enlightenment promoted education, scientific inquiry, and rational debate. Progress seemed possible through human effort rather than divine intervention. Not all Enlightenment ideals were realized. Contradictions existed between proclaimed universal rights and actual slavery and colonialism. Yet Enlightenment philosophy provided intellectual foundations for modern democracy, human rights, and secular governance. Its emphasis on reason, individual dignity, and progress remains central to how modern civilizations understand themselves and their possibilities. Fact 22. The Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution, beginning in 18th century Britain and spreading globally, transformed civilization from agricultural to industrial economies. New technologies, steam engines, mechanized textile production, iron and steel manufacturing, dramatically increased productive capacity. James Watt's improved steam engine provided reliable power beyond water wheels or horses. Factories concentrated workers and machines, producing goods faster and cheaper than traditional craftsmen. Railways and steamships revolutionized transportation, shrinking distances and accelerating trade. Urbanization accelerated as people moved from farms to factory towns seeking work. Cities grew explosively, creating new social challenges, crowded housing, pollution, labor exploitation. New social classes emerged, industrial capitalists and urban workers, with different interests than traditional aristocracy and peasantry. Living standards eventually rose, but early industrialization brought harsh working conditions, child labor, and environmental degradation. The Industrial Revolution demonstrates how technological change reshapes not just economics but social structures, daily life, and natural environments. It created modern consumer society, global trade networks, and unprecedented material abundance. It also created challenges we still grapple with: inequality, worker rights, environmental sustainability. Industrial civilization's power to transform nature and society proves both humanity's remarkable ingenuity and the need for wisdom in applying technological capabilities. Fact 23. Vaccination's victory. Edward Jenner's development of vaccination in 1796 marked a turning point in civilization's battle against disease. Jenner observed that milkmaids who contracted cowpox, a mild disease, didn't get smallpox, a deadly disease that killed millions. He tested whether cowpox exposure could prevent smallpox by deliberately infecting a boy with cowpox, then exposing him to smallpox. He didn't develop the disease. This first vaccine, from vacca, Latin for cow, faced initial skepticism but proved remarkably effective. Vaccination spread globally, eventually eradicating smallpox completely by 1980, the only human disease ever eradicated. The principle behind vaccination, training the immune system to recognize threats, led to vaccines against polio, measles, and countless other diseases. Child mortality plummeted. Life expectancy increased dramatically. Vaccination represents civilization's ability to understand biological processes and intervene systematically. It required international cooperation. The smallpox eradication campaign involved worldwide coordination. Vaccination also raises questions about public health versus individual choice, science communication, and global health equity. Jenner's insight, That we could prevent disease before it strikes rather than just treating it afterward, transformed human civilization's relationship with infectious disease, saving hundreds of millions of lives. Fact 24. The telegraph. Samuel Morse's telegraph, commercially deployed in the 1840s, first allowed near-instantaneous long-distance communication, shrinking civilization's sense of distance. Before the telegraph, messages traveled only as fast as horses, ships, or trains. News took days or weeks to cross continents. The telegraph transmitted coded messages electrically along wires at nearly the speed of light. Morse code, using dots and dashes to represent letters, provided a simple encoding system. Telegraph lines spread rapidly across continents and under oceans. Suddenly, news from distant places arrived in hours instead of weeks. Financial markets could coordinate globally. Newspapers received breaking news immediately. Military and governmental communication accelerated. The telegraph created the first global communication network, foreshadowing the internet. It required new infrastructure, vast networks of poles and wires, skilled operators, and coding systems. Language itself adapted, the famous "What hath God wrought?" First telegraph message showed both the technology's promise and the awe it inspired. The telegraph began the modern era of telecommunications, where distance matters less than connectivity. It demonstrated that information could travel independent of physical objects, a conceptual shift with profound implications for how civilizations organize commerce, warfare, and culture. Fact 25. Germ theory. Louis Pasteur and Robert Koch's establishment of germ theory in the 1860s-1880s revolutionized medicine and public health. For centuries, disease was attributed to bad air, imbalanced humors, or moral failing. Pasteur demonstrated that microorganisms caused fermentation and spoilage. He developed pasteurization to kill bacteria in milk and wine. Koch identified specific bacteria causing specific diseases: anthrax, cholera, tuberculosis. Their work established that invisible microorganisms caused illness. This insight transformed medical practice. Antiseptic techniques in surgery, pioneered by Lister, reduced deadly infections. Public health measures targeted disease transmission, clean water systems, sewage treatment, food safety regulations. Understanding infection led to antibiotics, beginning with Fleming's 1928 discovery of penicillin. Germ theory extended average lifespans by decades, reducing infant mortality and conquering diseases that had plagued civilization since its beginning. The theory required accepting an invisible world of microorganisms affecting human health, a conceptual leap supported by microscopy and experimental evidence. Germ theory exemplifies how scientific understanding transforms civilization practically and conceptually. It changed not just medical treatment but how societies organize water systems, food production, and urban planning. Recognizing disease as biological rather than moral or supernatural causes shifted civilization's approach to health fundamentally. Fact 26. Electricity's arrival. The harnessing of electricity in the late 19th century transformed every aspect of civilized life. Earlier scientists had observed electrical phenomena, but practical generation and distribution required decades of innovation. Thomas Edison's 1882 Pearl Street station in New York provided the first commercial electrical power to customers. Nikola Tesla's alternating current system proved more efficient for long-distance transmission than Edison's direct current. Electric lighting replaced gas lamps and candles, making nights safer and extending productive hours. Electric motors powered factories more efficiently than steam engines. Streetcars and subway systems used electricity for urban transportation. Refrigeration preserved food, changing diet and agriculture. Communication technologies, telephone, radio, later television, relied on electricity. Computers and digital civilization would be impossible without it. Electrification required massive infrastructure, power plants, transmission lines, home wiring. It represented civilization-wide coordination and investment. Access to electricity became a marker of development. Electrified societies could do things unelectrified ones couldn't. Today, nearly everything defining modern civilization depends on electrical power. The mastery of electricity represents humanity's ability to harness natural forces for civilizational purposes, transforming an abstract scientific phenomenon into the foundation of contemporary life. Fact 27. The assembly line. Henry Ford's introduction of the moving assembly line in 1913 revolutionized manufacturing and consumption. Ford didn't invent automobiles or assembly lines, but he perfected their combination. Previously, skilled workers built entire cars at stationary positions. Ford divided production into simple, repetitive tasks, with the car moving past workers who each performed one operation. This dramatically reduced production time. A Model T that took over 12 hours to build now took 93 minutes. Costs fell dramatically, making cars affordable for average workers. Ford famously paid workers $5 per day, double the typical wage, creating customers from his workforce. This production method spread to other industries, enabling mass production of countless goods. Assembly lines increased productivity but also alienated workers, reducing skilled craftwork to repetitive tasks. Labor movements fought for worker rights and humane conditions. Mass production created consumer society. Affordable manufactured goods became widely available. The assembly line principle, standardization, division of labor, continuous flow, shapes modern manufacturing. It demonstrates how organizational innovation can be as transformative as technological invention. Ford's system made consumption central to civilization, for better and worse, creating material abundance while raising questions about work's meaning and environmental sustainability. Fact 28. Antibiotics transform medicine. Alexander Fleming's 1928 discovery of penicillin, and its mass production in the 1940s, gave medicine its first powerful weapon against bacterial infection. Fleming noticed that mold contamination killed bacteria in his laboratory cultures. The penicillium mold produced a substance lethal to bacteria but safe for humans. Initially difficult to produce, penicillin production scaled up during World War II, saving countless soldiers from infected wounds that would previously have been fatal. After the war, antibiotics became widely available. Diseases that had killed throughout human history, pneumonia, tuberculosis, syphilis, infected wounds, became treatable. Surgery became safer, organ transplants possible. Childbirth mortality plummeted. Life expectancy increased dramatically. Antibiotics represent civilization's ability to manipulate biochemistry for therapeutic purposes. However, their success created new challenges. Overuse and misuse led to antibiotic-resistant bacteria. The same evolutionary processes that created bacterial diversity allow bacteria to adapt to antibiotics. Modern medicine faces a race between developing new antibiotics and bacterial evolution. The antibiotic era demonstrates both the power of medical science and the need for sustainable use of that power. Fleming's accidental discovery, carefully investigated and developed, gave civilization a gift whose value was measured in hundreds of millions of lives saved. Fact 29. Nuclear power. The harnessing of nuclear energy, first achieved in 1942, gave civilization access to unprecedented energy density but also unprecedented destructive power. Einstein's equation E=mc² revealed that matter itself contains enormous energy. The Manhattan Project weaponized this knowledge, creating atomic bombs that destroyed Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945, ending World War II while beginning the nuclear age. Nuclear weapons changed warfare fundamentally. Major powers couldn't fight directly without risking mutual destruction. Paradoxically, this created a long peace between great powers, though nuclear proliferation remains a civilization-threatening concern. Peaceful nuclear energy emerged alongside weapons. Nuclear power plants generate electricity by controlled atomic reactions, producing vast energy from small fuel amounts. Nuclear power provides carbon-free electricity but creates radioactive waste requiring millennia of storage. Accidents like Chernobyl and Fukushima demonstrate risks. Nuclear technology represents civilization's double-edged relationship with powerful technologies. It shows human capability to manipulate matter's fundamental structure, but also raises questions about wisdom and responsibility. Nuclear energy forced civilization to think about long-term consequences and existential risks. It provides a sobering example of how technological advancement requires not just capability but ethical frameworks for managing powerful tools. Fact 30. The Green Revolution. Norman Borlaug's work developing high-yield crop varieties in the 1960s, called the Green Revolution, prevented predicted famines and fed billions. Post-World War II population growth raised fears of mass starvation. Borlaug bred wheat varieties with shorter, stronger stems that could support heavier grain heads and resist disease. Combined with fertilizers, irrigation, and pesticides, these varieties dramatically increased yields. Mexico, India, and Pakistan adopted these methods, transforming from food importers to exporters. The Green Revolution averted predicted famines, feeding population growth that might otherwise have caused catastrophic hunger. Borlaug received the Nobel Peace Prize in 1970, credited with saving over 1 billion lives. However, the Green Revolution had costs. Increased pesticide use created environmental problems, water-intensive irrigation depleted aquifers, and economic inequality grew as wealthy farmers could afford new technologies while poor ones couldn't. Monoculture farming reduced crop diversity, making agriculture vulnerable to pests and climate change. The Green Revolution demonstrates civilization's capacity to address existential threats through scientific innovation while also showing that solutions create new challenges. It raised questions about sustainability, equity, and agriculture's environmental impact. Feeding billions is an achievement that enabled modern civilization's scale, yet it also demands we think carefully about how we produce food sustainably for future generations. As you rest tonight, the food security you likely take for granted rests on innovations like Borlaug's wheat varieties, quietly feeding civilization. Fact 31. The Space Age. The launch of Sputnik by the Soviet Union in 1957 began the space age, extending civilization's reach beyond Earth. This first artificial satellite circling Earth sparked both wonder and fear. The space race between the USA and USSR drove technological innovation. In 1961, Yuri Gagarin became the first human in space. In 1969, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin walked on the moon, watched by millions worldwide, a moment when all humanity briefly shared a common achievement. Space exploration required enormous resources and unprecedented engineering. Rockets, life support systems, navigation, materials science all advanced rapidly. Satellites now enable GPS navigation, global communications, weather forecasting, and Earth observation. The space program gave civilization new perspective, photographs of Earth from space, showing our planet as a fragile blue marble in darkness, changed environmental consciousness. Space exploration represents civilization's curiosity and ambition, the drive to explore beyond familiar boundaries. It's also collaborative. The International Space Station involves multiple nations. Space technology affects daily life in countless ways, from satellite TV to smartphone GPS. The space age demonstrates how civilization can achieve seemingly impossible goals through dedication, resources, and ingenuity, while also reminding us of our home planet's uniqueness and fragility. Fact 32. Computing Revolution. The development of digital computers transformed civilization more rapidly and completely than perhaps any previous technology. Early computers like ENIAC, built in 1945, filled entire rooms and calculated artillery trajectories. Transistors, replacing vacuum tubes in the 1950s, made computers smaller and more reliable. Integrated circuits in the 1960s further miniaturized electronics. Microprocessors in the 1970s put entire computers on single chips. Personal computers in the 1980s brought computing to homes and offices. Each generation of computers became faster, smaller, cheaper, and more powerful. Computing enables modern finance, communication, research, entertainment, and governance. Computers process information at speeds and scales impossible for human minds. They've transformed every field: medicine, engineering, art, science. Computers enable simulation and modeling, allowing civilization to test ideas virtually before building physically. They've created entirely new industries and obsoleted others. The computing revolution demonstrates how information processing and communication technologies reshape civilization fundamentally. As you rest tonight, computers worldwide continue processing, communicating, calculating, enabling the complex coordination that modern civilization requires. The digital age has only just begun, with artificial intelligence and quantum computing promising further transformation. Fact 33. The Internet. The Internet, evolving from military and academic networks in the 1960s-80s to global public access in the 1990s, created the first truly planetary communication system. The Internet's packet switching architecture, sending data in pieces that can take different routes to their destination, proved remarkably resilient and scalable. Tim Berners-Lee's World Wide Web, introduced in 1991, made the Internet accessible through linked hypertext documents. Suddenly, anyone with a computer and modem could access information worldwide, publish content, and communicate globally. Email, websites, e-commerce, social media, streaming video, the Internet enabled unprecedented connectivity. Information that would have required library visits became instantly searchable. Distance mattered less when you could video call someone across the planet. The Internet democratized publishing, giving everyone a potential global voice. It also created challenges: misinformation spreads as easily as truth, privacy erodes, echo chambers form, cyber attacks threaten infrastructure. The Internet represents civilization's nervous system, enabling coordination and communication at global scale. It's arguably the most transformative technology since printing, creating a civilization where information flows freely across borders. The Internet shows how technology can simultaneously empower individuals and create new forms of vulnerability and inequality. As networks blanket the Earth, civilization becomes increasingly interconnected, for better and worse. Fact 34. Medical imaging. Wilhelm Röntgen's 1895 discovery of X-rays began medical imaging's revolution of diagnosis and treatment. X-rays could pass through flesh but not bone, creating images of internal structures without surgery. This seemed miraculous, seeing inside living bodies without cutting them open. X-rays revealed broken bones, foreign objects, and diseased tissues. CT scans, developed in the 1970s, combined multiple X-ray images to create three-dimensional views of the body's interior. MRI scanners, using magnetic fields and radio waves, provided detailed images of soft tissues. Ultrasound used sound waves to visualize internal organs and developing fetuses safely. PET scans showed metabolic activity, helping diagnose cancer and brain disorders. Medical imaging transformed surgery from exploratory procedures to precisely planned interventions. Doctors could diagnose conditions early and monitor treatment progress. These technologies extended lives and reduced suffering by enabling detection before symptoms appeared. Medical imaging demonstrates how physics discoveries translate into practical tools that change civilization's relationship with disease and death. Seeing inside the body without invasion seems commonplace now, but it represents a profound capability, understanding what's happening inside people while they remain whole and living. This vision enables modern medicine's precision and effectiveness. Fact 35. Contraception. The development of reliable contraception, particularly the birth control pill approved in 1960, gave women unprecedented control over reproduction. Throughout history, controlling fertility was difficult and unreliable. The pill, combining hormones to prevent ovulation, provided reliable pregnancy prevention for the first time. This seemingly simple capability had profound civilizational effects. Women could pursue education and careers without pregnancy derailing their plans. Family sizes declined, particularly in developed nations. The timing between generations stretched as people delayed parenthood. Population growth slowed in countries with contraceptive access. Women's economic and social participation increased dramatically. Gender roles shifted as women could reliably separate sexuality from reproduction. Contraception also sparked debates about morality, gender, and social change. Religious and cultural attitudes toward contraception vary widely, reflecting deeper values about sexuality, gender, and family. The pill represents civilization's increasing ability to control biological processes that were previously inevitable. This control creates choices about family size, career timing, life planning, that previous generations lacked. Contraception demonstrates how medical technology doesn't just cure disease but can fundamentally alter social structures and individual life possibilities. It shows technology's power to shift civilizational patterns of marriage, family, work, and gender relations. Fact 36. DNA discovery. James Watson and Francis Crick's 1953 discovery of DNA's double helix structure revealed life's instruction manual, transforming civilization's understanding of heredity and enabling genetic engineering. DNA's elegant structure, two complementary strands spiraling around each other, with base pairs encoding genetic information, explained how genetic information could be copied and passed to offspring. This discovery unified biology, explaining inheritance, variation, and evolution at molecular level. DNA fingerprinting enabled forensic identification and paternity testing. Genetic medicine identified disease-causing mutations and suggested potential treatments. The Human Genome Project, completed in 2003, mapped all human genes. CRISPR, discovered in 2012, enables precise gene editing, promising cures for genetic diseases but also raising concerns about designer babies and unintended consequences. Genetic engineering produces medicines like insulin and creates modified crops. DNA ancestry testing reveals human migration patterns and personal heritage. Understanding DNA transformed agriculture, medicine, forensics, and anthropology. It also raised profound ethical questions. If we can edit genes, should we? Who decides what traits are desirable? DNA knowledge gives civilization unprecedented power to modify life itself, requiring wisdom and ethical frameworks to guide applications. As you rest tonight, your DNA quietly directs cellular processes keeping you alive, following instructions written in molecular language that civilization is just learning to read and edit. Fact 37, Transplant Medicine. The first successful human organ transplant, a kidney transplant in 1954 between identical twins, began modern transplant medicine. Taking a failing organ from one person and replacing it with a healthy one from another sounds straightforward but requires overcoming immense challenges. The immune system attacks foreign tissue, causing rejection. Immunosuppressant drugs, developed in the 1960s, allowed non-twin transplants by preventing rejection. Heart, liver, lung, and pancreas transplants followed. Transplant medicine has saved hundreds of thousands of lives, turning death sentences into survivable conditions. However, organ shortage remains critical. Far more people need transplants than organs are available. This creates ethical dilemmas about allocation. Who receives limited organs? How do we balance equity and medical urgency? Some advocate for opt-out organ donation systems to increase supply. Others research artificial organs or xenotransplantation using animal organs. Transplant medicine demonstrates civilization's ability to repair bodies in ways that would seem magical to previous generations. It also requires social coordination, organ procurement networks, surgical teams, immunosuppression protocols, recipient care. Transplantation shows how medical advances create new ethical challenges alongside new capabilities. The gift of an organ, whether from a living donor or deceased person, represents an ultimate act of compassion, enabling life to continue beyond individual death. Fact 38, Satellite Technology. Satellites orbiting Earth, first launched in 1957, transformed communications, navigation, weather forecasting, and Earth observation. Communication satellites, like Telstar in 1962, enabled live international television broadcasts and intercontinental telephone calls. Today, thousands of satellites relay phone calls, internet traffic, and television signals globally. GPS satellites, launched by the US military and now available worldwide, enable precise navigation anywhere on Earth. Your smartphone knows its location within meters because it receives signals from multiple GPS satellites. Weather satellites monitor storms, track hurricanes, and provide forecasts that save lives by enabling early warnings. Earth observation satellites monitor deforestation, ice melt, urban growth, and agricultural productivity. Military satellites enable surveillance and communication for armed forces. Scientific satellites study space, the sun, and Earth's climate. Satellites represent civilization's ability to create orbital infrastructure enabling global coordination. They're largely invisible to daily life but essential to modern civilization's functioning. Satellite technology shows how space exploration produces practical benefits. The same rocket science that sent humans to the moon now enables your GPS navigation and satellite TV. As you rest tonight, Thousands of satellites pass silently overhead, enabling communications, gathering data, and supporting the interconnected civilization that depends on their orbital dance. Fact 39. Container shipping. Standardized shipping containers, introduced in 1956 by Malcolm McLean, revolutionized global trade by dramatically reducing cargo handling costs. Before containerization, loading ships was labor-intensive. Longshoremen loaded individual crates, barrels, and packages. This took days and was expensive. McLean's insight was simple but transformative: use standardized metal boxes that could be easily transferred between ships, trains, and trucks without unpacking contents. A container ship could be loaded or unloaded in hours instead of days. Shipping costs plummeted. Global trade exploded as transporting goods became economically feasible over vast distances. Today, about 90% of world trade travels in containers. Those ubiquitous steel boxes, stacked on massive container ships, carry everything from electronics to clothing to food across oceans. Containerization enabled globalization. Manufacturing could move to wherever costs were lowest because shipping costs became minimal. Port cities transformed, replacing bustling docks with automated container terminals. Jobs shifted from manual cargo handling to logistics and coordination. This unglamorous innovation, standardized boxes, reshaped global economics and civilization's geography. It demonstrates how organizational innovations, not just technological ones, can transform civilization. As you rest, container ships cross oceans, carrying civilization's goods in those standardized boxes that made global commerce routine. Fact 40. The transistor. The transistor, invented in 1947, enabled modern electronics by replacing vacuum tubes with a smaller, more reliable, more efficient component. Vacuum tubes in early electronics were bulky, hot, energy-hungry, and fragile. Transistors, made from semiconducting materials like silicon, performed the same functions, amplifying and switching electrical signals, but were tiny, cool, efficient, and durable. This seemingly technical advance enabled the entire digital revolution. Transistor radios, introduced in the 1950s, were the first portable electronics. Transistors made computers smaller and more practical. Integrated circuits packed thousands, then millions, now billions of transistors onto chips. Every modern electronic device, smartphones, computers, cars, medical equipment, depends on transistors. Moore's law observed that transistor density doubled roughly every 2 years, driving exponential growth in computing power while costs fell. Transistors represent civilization's mastery of quantum physics applied practically. Understanding semiconductor behavior required sophisticated physics, but applying that knowledge created devices transforming daily life. The transistor shows how fundamental science research produces technologies with civilization-wide impacts. As you rest tonight, billions of transistors in nearby devices switch on and off millions of times per second, processing information, storing data, and enabling the digital civilization that surrounds you. Fact 41. Plastics proliferation. The development of synthetic plastics in the early 20th century created versatile, cheap materials that transformed manufacturing and daily life. Bakelite, created in 1907, was the first fully synthetic plastic. Later plastics, polyethylene, polystyrene, PVC, nylon, found countless applications. Plastics could be molded into any shape, were lightweight, waterproof, and durable. They replaced metal, glass, and wood in countless applications. Packaging, clothing, furniture, vehicles, medical devices, electronics, plastics are everywhere in modern civilization. They enabled single-use convenience and reduced costs. However, plastics' durability became a curse. They don't biodegrade. Plastic waste accumulates in landfills and oceans, harming ecosystems. Microplastics appear in water, food, and even human bodies. Plastic production, from petroleum, contributes to carbon emissions. Civilization faces a plastics crisis. We've created a miracle material but haven't solved what to do with it after use. Plastic demonstrates how solutions create new problems. The convenience and utility that made plastics universal now threatens environments and health. Addressing plastic pollution requires rethinking manufacturing, consumption, and waste. This challenge shows that civilizational success isn't just creating new technologies but managing their full life cycle and consequences. As you rest tonight, plastic objects surround you, representing both human ingenuity and the environmental challenges that ingenuity creates. Fact 42. Jet aviation. The development of jet engines in the 1940s transformed aviation, shrinking the world by making long-distance air travel fast and practical. Propeller aircraft were limited in speed and altitude. Jet engines, pushing aircraft forward by expelling hot gases, could fly faster and higher. The first commercial jetliner, the de Havilland Comet in 1952, began jet-age aviation. The Boeing 707 and Douglas DC-8 made jet travel routine. Flight times shrank dramatically, crossing the Atlantic took hours instead of days by ship or many hours by propeller plane. Jet travel made international tourism accessible to middle-class people. Business could be conducted globally with executives flying between continents. Cultural exchange accelerated as people could easily visit distant places. Aviation connected civilization physically, making the world smaller. However, aviation also creates environmental impacts. Jet fuel emissions contribute significantly to climate change. The aviation industry struggles to balance connectivity benefits with environmental costs. Jet aviation demonstrates how technology can compress space and time, making what was distant suddenly accessible. It also shows how civilization's connective technologies create both opportunities and responsibilities. As you rest tonight, hundreds of jets fly overhead, carrying thousands of people across continents, maintaining the global connections that define modern civilization. Fact 43. Television's impact. Television, becoming widespread in the 1950s, became civilization's first mass visual medium, profoundly influencing culture, politics, and daily life. Television brought moving images into homes, creating shared experiences across populations. People could witness events as they happened: presidential addresses, moon landings, sports championships. Television created common cultural references and shaped public opinion. News broadcasts influenced political perceptions. Advertising on television shaped consumer culture. Entertainment programming filled leisure hours and transmitted cultural values. Children grew up with educational programming like Sesame Street alongside entertainment. Television raised concerns about passive consumption and manipulation. Critics worried about its effects on literacy, attention spans, and social interaction. Television homogenized culture as national programming reached everywhere. It also could reinforce stereotypes or challenge them, depending on content. The medium's power to shape perceptions made it a tool for education, propaganda, entertainment, and social influence. Cable and satellite television multiplied channels, fragmenting audiences. Streaming services now challenge traditional television, but the medium's impact persists. Television demonstrates how communication technologies don't just transmit information but shape how civilization perceives itself, creates shared culture, and understands the world. As you rest tonight, television screens around the world glow with images, entertaining, informing, and influencing billions. Fact 44. Solar panels. The development of practical solar photovoltaic cells in the 1950s, and their cost reduction over decades, offers civilization a path to clean, renewable energy. Solar panels convert sunlight directly into electricity through the photovoltaic effect. Early solar cells, developed for space satellites where cost didn't matter, were far too expensive for terrestrial use. Decades of research and manufacturing improvements reduced costs exponentially. Solar power is now often cheaper than fossil fuels. Solar energy is abundant. More solar energy strikes Earth in 1 hour than civilization uses in a year. It's clean, producing electricity without emissions. It's distributed, allowing local generation. However, solar power is intermittent. It only works when the sun shines. Energy storage and grid management are needed for solar to replace fossil fuels fully. Solar panels demonstrate civilization's ability to harness fundamental physics for practical purposes. They represent hope for addressing climate change while meeting growing energy needs. The exponential cost decline shows how sustained research and manufacturing scale can transform impractical technologies into economically competitive solutions. Solar energy offers a vision of civilization powered by the same fusion reactions lighting the stars, transmitted across space, and captured by silicon cells. As you rest tonight, solar panels across the world wait silently for dawn, ready to convert tomorrow's sunlight into the energy that powers civilization. Fact 45. Mobile phones. Mobile phones, evolving from 1980s bulky car phones to today's pocket-sized smartphones, fundamentally changed communication and access to information. Early mobile phones only made calls and were expensive, heavy, and had short battery life. Digital networks improved call quality and added text messaging. Smartphones, particularly after the iPhone in 2007, became portable computers with cameras, GPS, internet access, and countless apps. Suddenly, civilization's accumulated knowledge became accessible anywhere. Communication became constant: calls, texts, emails, social media. Navigation became trivial with GPS and maps. Photography became ubiquitous. Banking, shopping, entertainment, education moved to mobile platforms. Smartphones changed social behavior. People constantly check devices, photograph experiences, and maintain virtual connections. Mobile phones brought internet access to billions in developing nations who never had landline phones or computers. However, constant connectivity creates new problems: distraction, reduced face-to-face interaction, privacy concerns, mental health effects. Mobile phones demonstrate how technology can simultaneously empower and overwhelm. They show how rapidly technology can transform daily life. Smartphones went from science fiction to essential in roughly a decade. As you rest tonight, your phone sits nearby, connected to global networks, ready to deliver any information or communication you might need, representing civilization's drive toward instant, universal connectivity. Fact 46. Artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence, where computers perform tasks requiring human-like intelligence, is transforming civilization in ways still unfolding. Early AI research in the 1950s-60s aimed to replicate human reasoning. Progress was slower than hoped. Computers could calculate but struggled with tasks like image recognition or natural language that humans do effortlessly. Neural networks, inspired by brain structure, enabled breakthroughs. Machine learning, where systems improve from experience rather than explicit programming, proved remarkably effective. Deep learning using multi-layer neural networks enabled computers to recognize images, translate languages, play games at superhuman levels. AI now powers search engines, recommendation systems, voice assistants, and autonomous vehicles. Medical AI can diagnose diseases from images. AI generates art, writes text, and composes music. However, AI raises profound questions. Will it displace human workers? Could it become uncontrollable? How do we ensure AI aligns with human values? Who's responsible when AI makes mistakes? AI represents civilization's attempt to create intelligence itself, not just tools for intelligent use. This capability could be transformative or dangerous, depending on how it's developed and deployed. AI demonstrates how rapidly research can move from theoretical possibility to practical impact. As you rest tonight, AI systems worldwide process data, make decisions, and learn, representing civilization's newest and perhaps most consequential technological frontier. Fact 47. Credit and debt. The development of modern credit systems, particularly credit cards introduced in the 1950s, transformed civilization's relationship with money and consumption. Throughout history, most transactions were immediate exchanges, goods for money or barter. Credit certainly existed, but modern credit systems enabled routine purchasing on borrowed money. Credit cards allowed consumers to buy now and pay later, earning interest for lenders. This availability of consumer credit transformed economies from production-focused to consumption-focused. People could purchase homes, cars, and education through loans, accessing resources they couldn't afford outright. Mortgages enabled homeownership. Student loans enabled education. Credit cards enabled convenience and rewards. However, easy credit also enabled debt accumulation. Interest compounds, making debt grow. Credit systems can trap people in cycles of borrowing and repayment. The 2008 financial crisis showed how credit system failures can devastate economies. Credit scoring systems determine access to housing, employment, and opportunity. Modern civilization runs on credit and debt. Governments, corporations, and individuals all borrow extensively. This creates economic growth but also vulnerability. Credit systems demonstrate civilization's increasing abstraction from physical exchange to financial instruments. They show how systems enabling opportunity can also create traps. As you rest tonight, financial transactions worldwide process on credit, with borrowed money enabling consumption and investment that drive modern economies. Fact 48. Antibody therapy. The discovery that antibodies could be used as medicines, particularly monoclonal antibodies developed in the 1970s, gave civilization powerful tools against disease. Antibodies, proteins produced by the immune system, recognize and bind to specific targets with extraordinary precision. Researchers discovered how to produce antibodies in laboratories targeting specific disease-related molecules. These monoclonal antibodies can block disease processes, mark cells for destruction, or deliver drugs precisely to targets. Antibody therapies treat cancers, autoimmune diseases, and infections. They represent a new paradigm in medicine. Instead of small molecule drugs affecting many processes, antibodies precisely target specific molecules. Antibody treatments have transformed diseases like rheumatoid arthritis from crippling to manageable. Cancer therapies using antibodies have dramatically improved outcomes for some malignancies. COVID-19 antibody treatments helped vulnerable patients. However, antibody therapies are expensive, requiring sophisticated manufacturing and often costing tens of thousands per treatment. This creates equity issues. These powerful medicines aren't accessible to everyone who could benefit. Antibody therapy demonstrates civilization's increasing ability to manipulate biological systems precisely. It shows how understanding immune system mechanisms leads to practical therapies. As you rest tonight, your own immune system produces antibodies protecting you from countless threats, the same molecules that medical science has learned to harness and direct against disease. Fact 49. Desalination. Desalination technology, removing salt from seawater to produce fresh water, offers civilization a potential solution to water scarcity. About 97% of Earth's water is salty ocean water. As freshwater sources face increasing demand from growing populations and climate change, desalination provides an almost unlimited source. Several technologies exist. Reverse osmosis forces water through membranes that block salt, while thermal desalination evaporates and condenses water. Israel, Saudi Arabia, and other water-scarce nations rely heavily on desalination. The technology is mature and proven but energy-intensive and expensive. Desalination costs have fallen as technology improved, making it increasingly competitive. However, environmental concerns exist. Desalination produces concentrated brine that must be disposed of carefully to avoid harming marine ecosystems. Energy use contributes to emissions unless renewable energy powers plants. Desalination demonstrates civilization's ability to solve resource constraints through technology. It shows how engineering can transform abundant but unusable resources into essential ones. As climate change and population growth stress freshwater supplies, desalination may become increasingly important. The technology represents hope that civilizational needs can be met even as traditional sources become scarce. As you rest tonight, desalination plants worldwide steadily convert seawater into the fresh water that cities depend on, demonstrating technology's role in supporting civilization despite resource limitations. Fact 50. The microbiome. The discovery of the human microbiome, the trillions of microorganisms living in and on our bodies, revealed that humans are ecosystems, not individuals. For most of history, bacteria were seen as enemies causing disease. Research in recent decades revealed that most bacteria in our bodies are beneficial or neutral. The microbiome helps digest food, produces vitamins, trains the immune system, and influences health in countless ways. Gut bacteria affect not just digestion but mental health, obesity, and disease susceptibility. The microbiome varies between individuals, influenced by birth method, diet, antibiotics, and environment. Disrupted microbiomes associate with numerous diseases. Fecal transplants, transferring healthy microbiomes to diseased individuals, can cure serious infections. Probiotic foods and supplements aim to support healthy microbiomes. This discovery transformed how civilization understands health. We're not autonomous individuals but ecosystems needing balance. It shows that identity is complex. Human cells are outnumbered by microbial ones. The microbiome demonstrates how scientific understanding can flip assumptions. Bacteria shifted from purely enemies to essential partners. It also shows how civilization's lifestyle, antibiotics, processed food, hygiene, can disrupt ancient relationships. As you rest tonight, your microbiome continues its work, digesting food, producing compounds, and maintaining the complex ecological balance that keeps you healthy, a reminder that we're never truly alone. Fact 51. Green architecture. The development of energy-efficient, sustainable building design shows civilization adapting to environmental constraints. Traditional buildings in hot climates used thick walls, courtyards, and strategic window placement to maintain comfort passively. Industrial civilization often ignored these principles, relying on energy-intensive heating and cooling. Green architecture revives passive design while adding modern technologies. High-performance insulation reduces heating and cooling needs. Strategic window placement maximizes natural light and passive solar heating. Green roofs absorb rainwater and insulate. Solar panels generate electricity. Efficient appliances and LED lighting reduce energy use. Rainwater collection and gray water recycling reduce water consumption. Buildings account for about 40% of energy use and carbon emissions, so improving building efficiency significantly impacts environmental footprints. Green building standards like LEED certify sustainable construction. Passive houses achieve dramatic energy reductions through careful design. Green architecture demonstrates that civilization can meet needs while reducing environmental impact through thoughtful design. It shows that sustainability isn't sacrifice but smart engineering. Buildings constructed today will stand for decades or centuries, so design choices have long-term consequences. As you rest tonight in whatever building shelters you, consider how its design either wastes or conserves resources, and how future buildings might increasingly harmonize human comfort with environmental sustainability. Fact 52. Genetic medicine. Personalized medicine based on individual genetic profiles promises to transform healthcare from one-size-fits-all to tailored treatments. People respond differently to medicines based on genetic variation affecting drug metabolism, disease susceptibility, and treatment response. Pharmacogenomics studies how genes affect drug responses. Some cancer treatments now target specific genetic mutations driving tumor growth. Genetic testing can identify disease risks before symptoms appear, enabling prevention. Gene therapy treats diseases by correcting faulty genes or introducing new ones. CRISPR gene editing offers potential cures for genetic diseases. However, genetic medicine raises ethical questions. Who should access genetic information? How do we prevent genetic discrimination? Should we edit human germline DNA, creating changes passed to descendants? Genetic privacy concerns arise as more people have genomes sequenced. The promise of personalized medicine must be balanced against costs, equity, and ethics. Genetic medicine demonstrates civilization's increasing ability to understand and manipulate biological complexity. It shows how information technology applied to biology enables precision previously impossible. As you rest tonight, your unique genome directs cellular processes, and medical science increasingly understands how to read the genome and intervene when it directs disease rather than health. Fact 53. Wind power. Modern wind turbines, descended from ancient windmills but vastly more sophisticated, provide clean, renewable electricity at scale. Wind power harnesses atmospheric motion, ultimately driven by solar heating, to generate electricity. Early wind turbines were small and inefficient. Modern turbines, with blades spanning hundreds of feet and sophisticated controls, can generate several megawatts each. Wind farms, gathering dozens or hundreds of turbines, generate substantial power. Offshore wind, using even larger turbines in coastal waters, offers immense potential. Wind power now competes economically with fossil fuels in many locations. It's clean, producing no emissions during operation. However, wind is intermittent and variable, requiring backup power or storage. Turbines affect landscapes and can harm birds and bats. Like solar, wind requires grid infrastructure to integrate intermittent generation. Wind power demonstrates how ancient energy sources can be harnessed with modern technology at civilizational scales. It shows that civilization's energy needs might be met through renewable sources, though challenges remain. Wind energy represents hope that climate change can be addressed while maintaining modern living standards. As you rest tonight, thousands of wind turbines turn in darkness, converting wind's kinetic energy into electricity, providing clean power while you sleep. Fact 54. Sewage treatment. Modern sewage treatment, removing contaminants before returning water to the environment, enabled dense urban civilization while protecting public health. In earlier cities, human waste contaminated water supplies, spreading disease. Cholera, typhoid, and other waterborne diseases killed millions. London's Great Stink of 1858, when Thames pollution became unbearable, spurred sewer construction. Early sewers just moved waste downstream, making it someone else's problem. Modern treatment plants use biological, chemical, and physical processes to remove contaminants. Primary treatment removes solids. Secondary treatment uses microorganisms to break down organic matter. Tertiary treatment removes nutrients and remaining contaminants. The water returned to rivers is often cleaner than the river water itself. Sludge remaining after treatment can be used as fertilizer. Sewage treatment is unglamorous but essential. Without it, modern cities would be impossible. It represents civilization's need to manage waste, not just produce goods and services. Sanitation infrastructure, though invisible to most people, prevents disease and environmental degradation. As you rest tonight, sewage systems beneath cities quietly move waste to treatment plants where it's processed and cleaned, maintaining the public health that allows millions to live in close proximity without catastrophic disease outbreaks that plagued earlier cities. Fact 55. Refrigeration. Mechanical refrigeration, developed in the 19th century and becoming widespread in the 20th, transformed food preservation, diet, and daily life. Before refrigeration, food preservation relied on drying, salting, smoking, or canning. Fresh food spoiled quickly, limiting diet and requiring frequent shopping. Ice harvesting provided some cooling but was seasonal and limited. Mechanical refrigeration using compression cycles could produce cold reliably year-round. Home refrigerators, becoming common in the 1920s-30s, changed domestic life. Shopping could be weekly instead of daily. Fresh foods remained safe longer. Ice cream and frozen foods became practical. Refrigerated transport allowed food distribution across continents. Fresh produce, meat, and dairy products could travel far from production sites. This transformed agriculture and diet. People could eat seasonal foods year-round. Global food markets developed. However, early refrigerants damaged the ozone layer, requiring new refrigerants. Refrigeration uses significant energy. The cold chain from farm to table requires continuous refrigeration, consuming resources. Refrigeration demonstrates how technology transforms daily life so completely that imagining life without it becomes difficult. It enabled modern supermarkets and global food systems. As you rest tonight, your refrigerator hums quietly, maintaining the cold that keeps food safe and fresh, a mundane miracle that civilization depends on. Fact 56. Air conditioning. Air conditioning, making indoor temperature control possible regardless of outside weather, transformed where and how people could live and work. Willis Carrier invented modern air conditioning in 1902 to control humidity in a printing plant. Initially used industrially, air conditioning gradually spread to theaters, offices, and eventually homes. Air conditioning enabled population growth in hot climates. The American Sun Belt's development depended on cooling technology. Singapore, Houston, and Phoenix grew into major cities partly because air conditioning made them livable. Air conditioning increased workplace productivity and comfort. It enabled heat-sensitive computing equipment and manufacturing. Hospitals, data centers, and research facilities depend on precise climate control. However, air conditioning uses enormous energy, Cooling accounts for significant electricity consumption, particularly during summer peaks. This energy use contributes to climate change, creating a problematic feedback loop. Refrigerants used in air conditioning can be potent greenhouse gases if leaked. Air conditioning demonstrates how technology solves problems while creating new ones. It shows how civilization can modify environments to suit human preferences but at environmental costs. As you rest tonight, perhaps in air-conditioned comfort, consider how this technology enables modern life while contributing to climate challenges that same modern life must address. Fact 57. Mass education. The development of universal public education in the 19th–20th centuries transformed civilization by educating entire populations rather than just elites. Throughout history, education was limited to wealthy classes and religious institutions. Literacy rates were low. Knowledge transmission occurred through apprenticeship and oral tradition. Industrialization created demand for educated workers. Democratic societies needed informed citizens. Universal education movements established public schools funded by governments and open to all children. Compulsory attendance laws ensured participation. Standardized curricula and teacher training created consistent educational experiences. Education expanded from basic literacy to secondary and higher education. Public education democratized opportunity, enabling social mobility based on merit rather than birth. It created more informed electorates and skilled workforces. Education correlates strongly with economic development, health, and social progress. However, educational quality varies enormously, creating inequities. Debates continue about curriculum, funding, and methods. Education demonstrates civilization's investment in human potential. It represents a collective decision to develop every individual's capabilities rather than allowing talent to waste through lack of opportunity. As you rest tonight, billions of educated people worldwide can read these words because societies chose to educate all children, not just privileged ones. Fact 58. Insulin discovery. The discovery of insulin in 1921 by Banting and Best transformed diabetes from a death sentence to a manageable chronic condition. Before insulin, type 1 diabetes was fatal. Patients wasted away as their bodies couldn't process glucose without insulin. The discovery that pancreatic extracts containing insulin could control blood sugar saved countless lives. Early insulin was extracted from animal pancreases. Genetic engineering later enabled bacteria to produce human insulin, improving supply and quality. Insulin therapy allows diabetics to live normal lifespans with careful management. However, insulin isn't a cure, it requires lifetime treatment, blood sugar monitoring, and lifestyle management. In some countries, insulin costs create access problems, demonstrating how life-saving medicines can be unaffordable. The discovery of insulin shows medical research's power to transform hopeless conditions into manageable ones. It demonstrates how understanding disease mechanisms enables interventions. Insulin therapy represents both medical triumph and ongoing challenge. Insulin therapy represents both medical triumph and ongoing challenge. Saved lives still require constant management and access to medication. As you rest tonight, millions of people with diabetes depend on insulin to maintain life, benefiting from a discovery that transformed medical understanding and saved countless lives across generations. Fact 59. Urbanization. The rapid urbanization of human civilization, particularly over the last 2 centuries, transformed humanity from primarily rural to predominantly urban. For most of history, over 90% of people lived in rural areas, working in agriculture. The Industrial Revolution drove people to cities seeking factory work. Cities offered opportunities, diversity, culture, and services unavailable in rural areas. By 2007, for the first time in history, more humans lived in urban than rural areas. Today, over half the world's population lives in cities, with urbanization continuing. Megacities with populations over 10 million have emerged: Tokyo, Delhi, Shanghai, Sao Paulo. Cities concentrate economic activity, innovation, and cultural production. They're more energy efficient per person than sprawling suburbs. However, urbanization creates challenges: housing shortages, traffic congestion, pollution, inequality, and strain on infrastructure. Slums house a billion people in inadequate conditions. Urban planning determines whether cities are livable or chaotic. Cities demonstrate civilization's tendency toward concentration and specialization. They show how humans increasingly live in human-made environments rather than natural ones. As you rest tonight, half of humanity sleeps in urban environments, in the concentrated settlements that have become civilization's primary form. Fact 60. Anesthesia. The development of anesthesia in the 1840s transformed surgery from a horrifying ordeal to a painless procedure. Before anesthesia, surgery was agonizing. Patients were held down or restrained while surgeons worked as quickly as possible. Many died from shock. Operations were limited to amputations, surface procedures, and other interventions possible in minutes. Ether and chloroform, discovered to cause unconsciousness, enabled longer, more complex surgeries. Patients could sleep through operations, feeling nothing. Surgeons could work carefully rather than racing against pain and shock. This enabled modern surgery, procedures inside the body, organ repairs, careful reconstruction. Local anesthetics like Novocaine allowed dental work and minor procedures without general anesthesia. Modern anesthesiology uses sophisticated drugs and monitoring to maintain unconsciousness safely. Anesthesia represents a profound change in the human experience of medical treatment. Pain, once inevitable during surgery, became optional. This capability seems miraculous, the ability to temporarily erase consciousness and pain, then restore it afterward. Anesthesia demonstrates how chemistry can modify consciousness and sensation. It shows civilization's power to control even subjective experiences like pain. As you rest tonight, drifting toward unconsciousness naturally, consider how anesthesia can create similar states for medical purposes, temporarily suspending awareness to enable healing procedures. Fact 61. Literacy spreading. The spread of literacy from elite minorities to global majorities represents one of civilization's greatest achievements. For most of history, reading and writing were specialized skills limited to scribes, clergy, and aristocracy. Oral tradition carried knowledge for most people. The printing press made books cheaper, but literacy remained limited. Universal education movements in the 19th–20th centuries taught populations to read and write. Literacy rates climbed from roughly 10 to 15% globally in 1800 to over 85% today. Literacy enables participation in written culture, access to information, economic opportunity, and civic engagement. It transforms individual potential by making accumulated knowledge accessible. However, literacy isn't binary. Functional literacy varies enormously. Many can decode words but struggle with complex texts. Digital literacy is now essential alongside traditional literacy. Literacy remains unequal, women and poor populations have lower rates. Yet the overall trend shows civilization extending capabilities once restricted to elites. As you read these words, you're exercising a skill that most of your ancestors lacked, participating in written communication that defines modern civilization. Literacy represents perhaps the most fundamental democratization, the sharing of the tools of knowledge itself. Fact 62. Vaccines expand. The expansion of vaccination programs globally has saved more lives than perhaps any other public health intervention. Beyond smallpox eradication, vaccines have nearly eliminated polio, reduced measles deaths by 73%, and prevented countless cases of whooping cough, diphtheria, tetanus, and other diseases. Childhood vaccination programs mean most children in developed nations never experienced diseases that routinely killed or disabled previous generations. The expanded program on immunization, launched by WHO in 1974, brought vaccines to developing nations. Vaccine development accelerated. Vaccines now protect against pneumonia, meningitis, cervical cancer, and other diseases. COVID-19 vaccine development, achieving safe and effective vaccines in under a year, demonstrated modern biotechnology's capabilities. However, vaccine hesitancy threatens progress. Misinformation spreads fear despite vaccines' overwhelming safety record. Achieving herd immunity requires high vaccination rates, making individual choices collectively important. Vaccine equity issues arise when wealthy nations access vaccines while poor ones wait. Vaccination demonstrates civilization's ability to collectively prevent disease through coordinated public health measures. It shows how individual actions contribute to community protection. As you rest tonight, your immune system maintains protection from vaccines you've received, part of a global shield against diseases that once devastated civilizations. Fact 63, the welfare state. The development of welfare states, where governments provide social safety nets and services, transformed the relationship between citizens and states. Before the 20th century, poverty relief was primarily through family, charity, or limited local assistance. Industrialization created urban poverty that traditional systems couldn't address. Germany under Bismarck pioneered social insurance in the 1880s, accident insurance, health insurance, old age pensions. Other nations followed with various welfare programs. The Great Depression and World War II spurred welfare state expansion. Programs included unemployment insurance, public pensions, healthcare, disability benefits, family allowances, and housing assistance. Nordic countries developed comprehensive welfare states. The U.S. created Social Security and Medicare. Welfare states aim to protect citizens from economic insecurity and provide basic living standards. They redistributed wealth, reduced poverty, and provided services markets didn't supply. However, welfare systems face challenges: funding pressures from aging populations, debates about sustainability, concerns about dependency, and political disagreements about government's proper role. Welfare states demonstrate civilization's choice to make collective provision for individual security rather than leaving people to face economic risks alone. They represent a social contract where citizens support each other through government programs. As you rest tonight, social safety nets support millions who might otherwise face destitution, representing civilization's compassion institutionalized. Fact 64, supermarkets. The development of self-service supermarkets transformed food shopping and distribution. Traditional grocery shopping involved asking clerks to retrieve items from behind counters. Piggly Wiggly, opened in 1916, pioneered self-service shopping. Customers selected items from shelves and paid at checkout. This reduced labor costs and allowed larger stores carrying more variety. Supermarkets combined this self-service model with large-scale, ample parking, and one-stop shopping. They offered fresh produce, meat, dairy, and packaged goods in a single location. After World War II, supermarkets proliferated, becoming civilization's primary food source in developed nations. They enabled efficient food distribution, connecting industrial agriculture to urban consumers. Refrigeration, preservatives, and packaging allowed diverse foods year-round. Supermarkets democratized access to variety. Products from around the world became available to average consumers. However, supermarkets also changed food culture. Processed foods proliferated, small shops declined, and food became commodified. Food waste increased. Agricultural production shifted to meet supermarket demands for appearance and shelf life over taste and nutrition. Supermarkets demonstrate civilization's industrialization of food, making abundance routine while sometimes sacrificing quality and sustainability. As you rest tonight, supermarkets sit stocked with thousands of products, ready for tomorrow's shoppers, representing the complex supply chains that feed modern civilization. Fact 65, birth control access. Widespread access to contraception, beyond just the pill, transformed reproductive rights and family planning globally. Condoms, diaphragms, IUDs, implants, and other methods gave people multiple contraceptive options. Family planning programs in developing nations helped couples control family size. This contributed to demographic transitions. Birth rates fell as infant mortality declined and contraception became available. Smaller families improved maternal and child health, enabled women's education and employment, and reduced poverty. Population growth slowed in countries with contraceptive access. However, contraception access remains unequal. Many women worldwide lack access to contraception, resulting in unintended pregnancies. Religious and political opposition restricts access in some places. Contraception's availability correlates with women's status, education, and economic participation. Family planning represents individual choice about reproduction, a fundamental personal freedom. It demonstrates civilization's increasing ability to separate sexuality from procreation, allowing people to choose if and when to have children. This choice transforms life planning, relationships, and women's opportunities. As you rest tonight, millions of people worldwide benefit from contraceptive technologies that give them control over reproduction, a capability that shapes modern civilization's demographics and opportunities. Fact 66. Blood transfusion. The development of safe blood transfusion, particularly after blood typing was discovered in 1901, gave medicine a life-saving tool. Karl Landsteiner identified ABO blood groups, explaining why some transfusions succeeded while others killed patients. Blood types must be compatible. This enabled safe transfusions. Blood banks, established in the 1930s-40s, collected, stored, and distributed blood. Citrate prevented clotting, refrigeration preserved blood, and screening protected against disease transmission. Blood transfusion transforms medicine. Surgery can replace blood lost during operations. Trauma victims receive blood for shock and blood loss, and diseases affecting blood can be temporarily treated. The blood donation system depends on volunteers giving blood to help strangers, a form of social solidarity. However, blood supplies are perpetually needed, and shortages occur during disasters or holidays. Blood safety improved dramatically after HIV transmission through transfusion prompted extensive screening. Blood transfusion demonstrates medicine's dependence on human generosity and social cooperation. It shows how medical advances require not just scientific knowledge but systems for collection, storage, and distribution. As you rest tonight, blood banks store the donations of strangers, ready to save lives tomorrow, representing civilization's ability to share vital resources through organized systems. Fact 67. Skyscrapers rising. The development of skyscrapers, enabled by steel frame construction and elevators, transformed cities vertically. Traditional buildings were limited in height by load-bearing wall strength. Steel frames could support much taller structures. Elisha Otis's safety elevator, demonstrated in 1854, made tall buildings practical by enabling safe vertical transport. Chicago's home insurance building, completed in 1885, was the first steel frame skyscraper. New York's skyline famously filled with Art Deco towers in the 1920s-30s. After World War II, glass and steel international-style towers spread globally. Skyscrapers symbolized progress, modernity, and economic power. They enabled cities to grow upward when limited by geography or surrounded by development. Skyscrapers concentrate workers, making business districts vibrant. They create iconic cityscapes and landmarks. However, skyscrapers also create challenges. They require enormous energy for heating, cooling, and elevators. They cast shadows and create wind tunnels. Their construction demands extensive resources. Skyscrapers demonstrate civilization's drive to build monumentally and maximize land use. They show how engineering enables architecture previously impossible. As you rest tonight, skyscrapers around the world stand as monuments to ambition and engineering, housing thousands who live and work suspended hundreds of feet above ground. Fact 68. The assembly line worker. The transformation of work through industrialization, particularly assembly line production, fundamentally changed human labor and daily life. Pre-industrial work was largely agricultural or craft-based, varied, skilled, often seasonal. Factory work, especially assembly lines, made work repetitive, specialized, and regimented. Workers performed simple tasks repeatedly, requiring little training but offering little fulfillment. This increased productivity enormously but alienated workers from finished products. They never saw the complete item they helped produce. Time became strictly controlled. Factory whistles, time clocks, and schedules governed working hours. Labor movements fought for worker rights, reasonable hours, safe conditions, and fair wages. The 8-hour workday, weekends, and overtime pay came from labor struggles. Child labor was eventually prohibited. Unions gave workers collective bargaining power. Work-life balance became a concern as industrial work separated workplace from home. Today, automation and computers continue transforming work, with some predicting human labor's obsolescence. The nature of work shapes civilization profoundly: how we spend our days, what skills matter, how we find meaning and identity. As you rest tonight, preparing for tomorrow's work, consider how civilization's organization of labor evolved from agricultural rhythms to industrial schedules to today's digital work patterns. Fact 69. Recorded music. The ability to record and reproduce sound, beginning with Edison's phonograph in 1877, transformed music from ephemeral performance to permanent artifact. Before recording, music existed only in live performance or written notation. Hearing great musicians required attendance at concerts. Recording captured performances, allowing music to be heard repeatedly, anywhere. Early recordings were primitive, but quality improved with electrical recording, magnetic tape, vinyl records, and eventually digital formats. Radio broadcast recorded music to millions simultaneously. Recorded music became a major industry, people could own music collections. This democratized access to music, anyone could hear performances by the world's best musicians. However, recording also changed music creation, studio techniques became art forms, and some music existed only in recorded form, impossible to perform live. Musicians' income shifted from performance to recording sales. Digital music and streaming further transformed the industry, making vast catalogs instantly accessible but reducing per-play compensation. Recorded music demonstrates how technology can capture and reproduce human creativity, making art accessible across time and space. As you rest tonight, recorded music from any era or place is available instantly, a vast musical heritage preserved and accessible through recording technology. Fact 70. Highway systems. The construction of extensive highway systems, particularly the U.S. Interstate Highway System begun in 1956, transformed transportation and settlement patterns. Highways enabled fast automobile travel between cities. They decentralized populations, enabling suburbs far from city centers. Trucks could efficiently transport goods, changing freight from rail to road. The interstate system, inspired partly by Germany's Autobahn, created 48,000 miles of limited-access highways connecting American cities. Similar highway systems developed globally. Highways shaped development patterns, cities near interchanges grew, those bypassed declined. Suburbs sprawled along highway corridors. Drive-in businesses, motels, and rest stops served highway travelers. However, highways also divided communities, displaced residents through urban highways, increased automobile dependence, and contributed to pollution and sprawl. Highway construction represents massive public investment in automobile infrastructure. It shows civilization's commitment to personal vehicle transportation, with lasting consequences for urban form, energy use, and lifestyle. Highways demonstrate how infrastructure decisions shape development for generations. As you rest tonight, highways around the world carry freight and travelers through darkness, maintained by civilization's commitment to automotive mobility that highways both enabled and reinforced. Fact 71. Mental health treatment. The transformation of mental health care from asylums to community treatment and medication represents civilization's evolving understanding of mental illness. Historically, mental illness was attributed to demons, moral failing, or imbalanced humors. Asylums, often more like prisons, isolated mentally ill people. Treatment was crude: restraints, ice baths, lobotomies. The development of psychiatric medications in the 1950s enabled symptom management. Antipsychotics reduced hallucinations and delusions, antidepressants and anti-anxiety medications improved mood disorders. Deinstitutionalization moved treatment from asylums to community settings. Psychotherapy evolved from Freudian analysis to cognitive behavioral therapy and other evidence-based approaches. Mental health stigma slowly reduced as understanding increased. Mental illness came to be seen as brain disorders requiring treatment, not moral failings requiring punishment. However, mental health care remains inadequate, many lack access to treatment, homelessness often involves untreated mental illness, and stigma persists. Insurance coverage for mental health lags behind physical health. Mental health treatment demonstrates civilization's growing compassion and understanding, while also revealing how far we still must go. As you rest tonight, millions struggle with mental illness, some receiving effective treatment while others suffer without adequate care, reflecting civilization's incomplete progress toward treating all illnesses with equal concern and resources. Fact 72. Women's suffrage. The extension of voting rights to women, achieved gradually across the 20th century in most democracies, fundamentally changed political participation and governance. Democratic governments initially limited voting to property-owning men, then expanded to all men, but excluded women. Suffragists argued this was unjust. Women were citizens, taxpayers, and affected by laws they couldn't vote on. The movement faced fierce opposition, claiming women were unsuited for politics or that voting would disrupt family life. New Zealand granted women's suffrage in 1893, the first nation to do so. Other nations slowly followed. World War I, when women filled industrial jobs, strengthened suffrage arguments. The U.S. granted women's suffrage in 1920, Britain in 1928. Some nations waited longer, Switzerland until 1971, Saudi Arabia until 2015. Women's suffrage roughly doubled electorates, bringing new perspectives to politics. Women's policy priorities, education, health, child welfare, gained attention. Women politicians entered government, though gender parity remains unachieved. Suffrage demonstrates how definitions of citizenship can expand, how rights once denied can become recognized. It shows civilization's capacity to correct injustices, though often only after long struggle. As you rest tonight, women's political participation, once denied, now seems obviously right, showing how civilization's moral understanding can evolve. Fact 73. Global supply chains. The development of global supply chains, where products incorporate components from multiple countries, created an interdependent world economy. Products were historically made locally or nationally, components and assembly occurred near each other. Transportation costs and trade barriers limited geographic separation. Reduced shipping costs, free trade agreements, and communication technology enabled geographic dispersion. Companies could source components where production was cheapest, assemble elsewhere, and sell globally. Your smartphone might contain chips from Taiwan, rare earth elements from China, design from California, assembly in Vietnam. This efficiency reduced costs, increased variety, and specialized production. However, global supply chains created vulnerabilities. Disruptions anywhere affect production everywhere. The COVID-19 pandemic exposed these fragilities when disruptions rippled globally. Just-in-time manufacturing, keeping minimal inventory, increased efficiency but reduced resilience. Global supply chains raised labor and environmental concerns. Companies could exploit weak regulations abroad. Supply chains demonstrate globalization's depth. Products embody international cooperation but also international inequality and vulnerability. As you rest tonight, ships, trains, and planes carry components around the world, maintaining the supply chains that deliver countless products, representing civilization's remarkable but fragile global integration. Fact 74. Antibiotics resistance. The emergence of antibiotic-resistant bacteria demonstrates evolution in action and threatens to undo antibiotics' medical revolution. Antibiotics were miracle drugs, transforming bacterial infections from deadly to treatable. However, bacterial evolution is relentless. Random mutations occasionally produce antibiotic resistance. Surviving bacteria reproduce, spreading resistance. Overuse and misuse of antibiotics accelerated this process. Unnecessary prescriptions, agricultural use for growth promotion, patients not completing courses. Resistance spread through bacterial populations and crossed species boundaries. MRSA, resistant to many antibiotics, kills thousands annually. Tuberculosis developed multi-drug resistant and extensively drug-resistant strains. Some bacteria resist all available antibiotics, returning medicine to the pre-antibiotic era for infected patients. Antibiotic resistance shows that technological solutions to biological problems face biological responses. Bacteria evolve faster than we develop new antibiotics. Addressing resistance requires using antibiotics judiciously, developing new drugs, and understanding that we're in an ongoing evolutionary struggle with microscopic life. This demonstrates civilizations need to use medical tools sustainably and respect evolutionary processes. As you rest tonight, bacterial evolution continues in hospitals, farms, and bodies worldwide, reminding us that nature responds to our interventions in ways we must anticipate and address. Fact 75. Solar System Exploration. Robotic exploration of the solar system, from early flyby missions to Mars rovers, extended civilization's reach while revealing other worlds' nature. Space probes visited every planet, Mariner missions explored Mars and Venus, Voyagers flew past Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, Cassini orbited Saturn, New Horizons reached Pluto. Mars rovers, starting with Sojourner in 1997 through Perseverance in 2021, explore the red planet's surface. These missions revealed alien landscapes, Venus's crushing heat, Jupiter's vast storms, Saturn's rings, Mars's ancient river channels. They discovered moons with subsurface oceans possibly harboring life, Europa, Enceladus, Titan. Robotic exploration is cost-effective compared to human missions and can go where humans cannot survive. However, robots lack human adaptability and judgment. Missions take years to reach destinations and communicate with lightspeed delays. Solar system exploration demonstrates civilization's curiosity extending across the void. It shows how we study inaccessible environments through robotic proxies. These missions seek to understand our cosmic context, how planets form, whether life exists elsewhere, what Earth's future might hold. As you rest tonight, space probes billions of miles away continue transmitting data, extending human awareness across the solar system. Fact 76. Fossil fuel civilization. Modern civilization runs on fossil fuels, coal, oil, and natural gas, ancient sunlight stored underground for millions of years. The Industrial Revolution began with coal powering steam engines. Oil enabled automobiles, aviation, and petrochemicals. Natural gas heats homes and generates electricity. Fossil fuels' energy density enabled civilization's expansion. They store enormous energy in small volumes, are easily transported, and release energy controllably. Global energy consumption increased exponentially as civilization industrialized. Fossil fuels lifted billions from poverty, enabled modern technology, and powered economic growth. However, fossil fuel combustion releases carbon dioxide, causing climate change. Extraction damages environments through mining, drilling, and spills. Air pollution from combustion kills millions annually. Civilization faces a profound challenge, transitioning from fossil fuels while maintaining living standards and extending development benefits to poor nations. Renewable energy grows but hasn't displaced fossil fuels yet. This demonstrates how solutions can become problems. Fossil fuels solved energy scarcity but created climate crisis. Civilization must now transform its energy foundation within decades. As you rest tonight, fossil fuels power much of the world around you, providing the energy that enables modern life while driving climate change that threatens that same civilization. Fact 77. The United Nations. The United Nations, established in 1945 after World War II's devastation, represented an attempt to create international institutions preventing future wars. The League of Nations, formed after World War I, failed to prevent World War II. The UN aimed to succeed where the League failed, providing forums for dispute resolution, collective security through the Security Council, and international cooperation on health, development, and human rights. The UN achieved successes: peacekeeping operations, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, disease eradication campaigns, development programs, and forums where nations negotiate. However, the UN also has limitations. The Security Council's permanent members can veto actions, and the UN has no independent power beyond what members grant. It couldn't prevent many conflicts and genocides. The UN represents civilization's aspiration toward global governance and cooperation while revealing how difficult this is when nations retain sovereignty and pursue self-interest. It shows how institutions can embody shared values even when imperfectly implemented. As you rest tonight, UN agencies worldwide work on peacekeeping, humanitarian aid, and development, representing the ideal that civilization should cooperate globally even when reality often falls short. Fact 78. The genetic code. The discovery that DNA's sequence encodes proteins through a universal genetic code unified biology and revealed life's fundamental commonality. DNA contains 4 bases, A, T, G, C, whose sequence encodes genetic information. 3 base sequences called codons specify amino acids. Chains of amino acids form proteins that perform cellular functions. Remarkably, this genetic code is nearly universal. The same codons mean the same amino acids in bacteria, plants, and humans. This universality reveals all life descends from common ancestors. The genetic code's discovery enabled genetic engineering. Scientists could read DNA sequences, predict resulting proteins, and modify genes knowing how changes would affect proteins. It showed that information flow in cells goes from DNA to RNA to proteins. Understanding the genetic code was like finding life's programming language. It demonstrated that biology operates on information processing principles. The genetic code's universality means genes can be transferred between species. Bacterial cells can produce human insulin because both use the same code. This discovery unified biology under information theory and molecular principles. As you rest tonight, your cells read genetic code continuously, translating DNA's information into the proteins that maintain life, following instructions written in a language shared by all living things. Fact 79. Globalization. Globalization, the increasing interconnection of economies, cultures, and populations worldwide, has accelerated dramatically since the late 20th century. Trade liberalization, communication technology, and reduced transportation costs enabled unprecedented integration. Companies operate globally, supply chains span continents, capital flows instantly across borders. Cultural products, movies, music, food, fashion, spread worldwide. People migrate internationally more than ever. Information flows globally through the internet. Globalization lifted millions from poverty through economic growth, increased product variety and availability, and spread innovation rapidly. However, globalization also created winners and losers. Manufacturing jobs moved to low-wage countries, inequality increased within nations, local cultures felt threatened by homogenization, and financial crises spread globally. Globalization represents civilization's increasing integration, creating a more interconnected but also more complex and interdependent world. It raises questions about identity, sovereignty, and equity. Globalization demonstrates how technology and policy choices create civilization-wide transformations. As you rest tonight, globalization continues. Markets trade 24 hours following the sun across time zones, maintaining the constant circulation that characterizes modern interconnected civilization. Fact 80. Human rights. The concept of universal human rights, that all people possess inherent dignity and rights regardless of nationality, religion, race, or status, represents a relatively recent civilizational development. Throughout history, rights were granted by rulers or extended only to certain groups. The Enlightenment proposed natural rights, but implementation was limited. The Holocaust's horrors prompted renewed commitment to human rights. The UN's 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights enumerated rights including life, liberty, security, equality before law, freedom from torture and slavery, freedom of thought and expression, and rights to education and adequate living standards. This declaration doesn't have legal force but influenced national laws and international treaties. Human rights discourse expanded to include women's rights, children's rights, LGBTQ rights, and indigenous rights. However, human rights remain unevenly realized. Authoritarian governments suppress rights, poverty denies people effective exercise of rights, and cultural relativism questions whether rights are truly universal. Human rights represent civilization's aspiration toward universal dignity and justice, even when reality falls short. They show how moral progress occurs through articulating principles that, once stated, become standards against which societies can be judged. As you rest tonight, human rights defenders worldwide work to make these principles real, representing civilization's ongoing moral development. Fact 81. Green Revolution Technology. Modern agricultural technology beyond high-yield crops transformed farming into high-tech industry. Tractors and combines mechanized tasks once done by hand or animal power. Precision agriculture uses GPS, sensors, and data analytics to optimize planting, fertilization, and harvesting. Drones monitor crop health. Automated irrigation systems deliver precise water amounts. Genetic engineering creates crops resistant to pests, herbicides, or environmental stress. Vertical farming grows food in controlled indoor environments using LED lighting and hydroponics. These technologies increase yields, reduce labor, and can reduce environmental impacts through precision. However, they also require capital investments that favor large farms over small farmers, raising equity concerns. Dependence on technology creates vulnerability to system failures. Genetic modification raises safety and ethical questions. Agricultural technology demonstrates civilization's application of science to food production, transforming farming from traditional practices to data-driven systems. It shows both the benefits and challenges of technological progress, increased productivity alongside concerns about equity, sustainability, and unintended consequences. As you rest tonight, farms worldwide use technology producing tomorrow's food, representing agriculture's transformation from ancient practice to modern science. Fact 82, Mass tourism. The democratization of travel through affordable air travel and package tourism transformed travel from elite privilege to mass activity. Travel was historically limited to wealthy people with time and resources. Only aristocrats took grand tours. Ordinary people rarely traveled far from birthplaces. Jet travel, charter flights, and tourism industry growth made international travel accessible to middle classes in developed nations. Package tours offered affordable trips to beaches, historical sites, and exotic destinations. Tourism became major industry. Some economies depend heavily on tourist income. Mass tourism enabled cultural exchange, broadened perspectives, and created understanding between peoples. However, tourism also created problems. Overcrowding damages historical sites and natural areas. Local cultures become commercialized. Sex tourism exploits vulnerable people. Carbon emissions from aviation contribute to climate change, and tourism can increase inequality and displace locals. Mass tourism demonstrates globalization's human dimension, people moving temporarily across borders for leisure. It shows how technology making travel cheap and easy creates both opportunities and challenges. As you rest tonight, millions of tourists sleep away from home, participating in the massive movement of people that characterizes modern mobile civilization. Fact 83, Streaming media. Streaming technology, delivering audio and video over the internet without downloading files, transformed media consumption. Earlier media consumption required physical formats, vinyl records, tapes, CDs, DVDs, or scheduled broadcasts. Napster and file sharing, though often illegal, showed demand for on-demand digital media. Netflix, initially mailing DVDs, pioneered streaming video. YouTube enabled user-generated video sharing. Spotify and Apple Music streamed music. Streaming services proliferated across entertainment, news, and education. Suddenly, vast media libraries became instantly accessible anywhere with internet connection. Users could watch what they wanted when they wanted. However, streaming fragmented content across competing services, sometimes making desired content hard to find or expensive to access. Artists received minimal per-stream payments. Streaming required high bandwidth, creating digital divides. Attention became increasingly fragmented. Streaming demonstrates how digital distribution transforms industries built on physical media scarcity. It shows the internet's power to disintermediate content distribution. As you rest tonight, streaming services worldwide deliver endless content, representing civilization's expectation of instant, on-demand access to virtually any media content. Fact 84, Organ printing. Three-dimensional bioprinting, using living cells to print tissue structures, promises to revolutionize transplant medicine and tissue engineering. Traditional organ transplantation depends on donated organs, but demand far exceeds supply. Bioprinting aims to create replacement tissues and organs using patients' own cells, eliminating rejection and supply limitations. Researchers have successfully printed simple tissues like skin, cartilage, and blood vessels. More complex organs like hearts and kidneys remain challenging because they require intricate vascular networks and multiple cell types. Bioprinting also enables creating tissue models for drug testing, potentially reducing animal experimentation. The technology is still developing. Fully functional printed organs haven't been achieved yet, but progress continues. Bioprinting demonstrates civilization's advancing capability to manipulate biological materials at fine scales. It represents hope for addressing organ shortage while raising questions about the ethics of creating living tissues. If successful, bioprinting could transform medicine from repairing bodies with donated parts to manufacturing custom replacements. As you rest tonight, researchers worldwide work on bioprinting technologies that might someday make organ failure survivable for everyone, not just those fortunate enough to receive donor organs. Fact 85, Drone Technology. Unmanned aerial vehicles, or drones, evolved from military applications to widespread civilian uses. Military drones conduct surveillance and strikes, raising ethical questions about remote warfare. Civilian drones democratized aerial photography and videography. What once required expensive helicopters now costs hundreds of dollars. Drones deliver packages in pilot programs, potentially transforming logistics. They inspect infrastructure like bridges and power lines safely and cheaply. Agricultural drones monitor crops and spray precisely. Drones assist disaster response, finding survivors and assessing damage. Hobbyists fly drones recreationally. However, drones also raise concerns: privacy invasion from aerial surveillance, safety risks from crashes or interference with aircraft, and potential misuse by criminals or terrorists. Regulating drones balances innovation against safety and privacy. Drone technology demonstrates how military innovations diffuse to civilian applications. It shows how technology can simultaneously empower individuals and create new threats requiring regulation. As you rest tonight, drones somewhere conduct deliveries, gather data, and provide perspectives previously impossible, representing civilization's extension of capabilities through robotic aerial platforms. Fact 86, CRISPR Gene Editing. CRISPR-Cas9, discovered in 2012, enables precise, relatively easy gene editing, revolutionizing genetic engineering. Earlier gene editing techniques were difficult, expensive, and imprecise. CRISPR, adapted from bacterial immune systems, acts like molecular scissors, cutting DNA at precise locations. Scientists can delete, replace, or insert genes with unprecedented precision. CRISPR enables research by allowing scientists to modify genes and observe effects. It offers potential cures for genetic diseases by correcting disease-causing mutations. Agriculture might develop improved crops faster. However, CRISPR also raises profound ethical questions. A Chinese scientist's controversial creation of gene-edited babies in 2018 sparked international condemnation and renewed debate about limits. Should we edit human germline DNA, creating changes passed to descendants? Who decides what genetic traits are desirable? Could gene editing increase inequality, creating genetic haves and have-nots? CRISPR demonstrates how scientific capabilities can advance faster than ethical consensus. It shows civilization grappling with unprecedented power to modify life's fundamental code. As you rest tonight, researchers worldwide use CRISPR, exploring both its therapeutic promise and ethical implications, navigating territory where scientific capability outpaces moral certainty. Fact 87. Renewable energy growth. Renewable energy, solar, wind, hydroelectric, and other sources, is growing rapidly as technology improves and costs fall. For decades, renewables were expensive compared to fossil fuels. Government subsidies supported early deployment. Technological improvements and manufacturing scale reduced costs dramatically. Solar and wind power are now often cheaper than new fossil fuel plants. Battery storage addresses intermittency, storing excess renewable energy for use when sun doesn't shine or wind doesn't blow. Electric vehicles, charged with renewable electricity, could eliminate transportation emissions. Some nations generate most electricity renewably. Norway uses mostly hydropower. Costa Rica runs on renewable electricity. However, renewable energy hasn't yet displaced fossil fuels globally. Storage challenges remain. Intermittency requires grid modifications. Manufacturing renewable infrastructure requires materials and energy. Renewable growth represents hope for addressing climate change while maintaining energy access. It shows how sustained research and deployment can transform expensive technologies into economically competitive alternatives. As you rest tonight, wind turbines turn and solar panels await dawn, gradually increasing renewable energy's share of civilization's power generation, representing transition toward sustainable energy systems. Fact 88. Microfinance. Microfinance, providing small loans to poor entrepreneurs unable to access traditional banking, emerged as an approach to poverty reduction. Muhammad Yunus pioneered the concept with Grameen Bank in Bangladesh in the 1970s. Traditional banks wouldn't lend small amounts to poor borrowers lacking collateral. Microfinance lends to groups who guarantee each other's loans, enabling entrepreneurship among the poor. A small loan might buy a sewing machine, seeds, or inventory, enabling someone to start a small business. Repayment rates are surprisingly high. Microfinance spread globally, reaching millions of borrowers, primarily women. Yunus received the Nobel Peace Prize in 2006. However, microfinance isn't a panacea. Some borrowers fall into debt traps, interest rates can be high, and microfinance doesn't address systemic poverty causes. Critics note that not everyone is entrepreneurial, and microloans can't substitute for broader development. Microfinance demonstrates how financial innovation can extend services to excluded populations. It shows both promise and limitations of market-based poverty solutions. As you rest tonight, microfinance borrowers worldwide work on small businesses enabled by loans, representing attempts to address poverty through financial inclusion. Fact 89. High-speed rail. High-speed rail, traveling at speeds over 200 miles per hour, offers efficient inter-city transportation alternative to flying or driving. Japan's Shinkansen, launched in 1964, pioneered high-speed rail. France's TGV, Spain's AV, and China's extensive high-speed network followed. High-speed trains connect cities hundreds of miles apart in hours, often faster than flying when accounting for airport travel and security. They're energy efficient, electrically powered, and emit less carbon than cars or planes. They relieve highway congestion and airport capacity. High-speed rail enables commuting between distant cities, creating integrated mega-regions. However, high-speed rail requires massive infrastructure investment, dedicated tracks, specialized trains, and stations. It works best in dense corridors with cities 200 to 500 miles apart. The U.S., despite attempts, has limited high-speed rail due to lower density and automobile culture. High-speed rail demonstrates how infrastructure investments can reshape development patterns. It shows transportation choices affecting energy use, urban form, and lifestyle. As you rest tonight, high-speed trains across Asia and Europe carry thousands of passengers, offering glimpses of low-carbon transportation futures. Fact 90. Wastewater recycling. Advanced wastewater treatment and recycling addresses water scarcity by reusing treated sewage. Traditional sewage treatment cleans water enough for river discharge. Advanced treatment purifies wastewater to drinking water standards through multiple filtration, disinfection, and monitoring stages. Singapore's NE Water and California's Orange County Water District pioneered large-scale potable water recycling. Treated wastewater can also irrigate crops or recharge aquifers. Water recycling addresses growing scarcity, population growth, climate change, and drought-strained freshwater supplies. The phrase toilet to tap creates public relations challenges despite water safety. People have psychological resistance to drinking treated sewage, though it's often cleaner than conventional sources. Education and trust building are necessary. Water recycling demonstrates how technology can close resource loops, treating waste as valuable inputs rather than disposables. It shows civilization learning to operate more sustainably by mimicking natural cycles where waste becomes resource. As you rest tonight, water recycling facilities purify wastewater, demonstrating that with sufficient treatment, all water can be clean water, offering hope for water-stressed regions. Fact 91. Smartphone revolution. Smartphones, combining computers, cameras, GPS, and communication in pocket-sized devices, transformed daily life more rapidly than perhaps any technology. The iPhone's 2007 launch catalyzed the smartphone revolution, though earlier smartphones existed. Suddenly, powerful computers were always accessible. The app ecosystem enabled specialized functions, photography, navigation, banking, shopping, fitness tracking, social media, entertainment. Mobile internet meant constant connectivity. Smartphones changed social behavior. People photograph experiences, navigate confidently anywhere, access information instantly, and maintain continuous contact. They enabled the gig economy through apps connecting workers and customers. However, smartphones also created problems: distraction while driving, reduced face-to-face interaction, sleep disruption from nighttime use, mental health concerns from social media, and digital addiction. Smartphones demonstrate how rapidly transformative technology can achieve near universal adoption. They show technology's double-edged nature, empowering while potentially overwhelming. As you rest tonight, your smartphone sits nearby, a powerful computer that would have amazed previous generations, representing civilization's trajectory toward ubiquitous computing and constant connectivity. Fact 92. Electric vehicles. Electric vehicles, particularly battery-powered cars, offer transportation without combustion emissions, addressing climate change and air pollution. Early automobiles included electrics, but gasoline cars dominated due to superior range and refueling speed. Environmental concerns and battery technology improvements revived electric vehicles. Tesla, founded in 2003, proved electric cars could be desirable and high performance. Other manufacturers followed. Battery costs fell dramatically, making electric vehicles increasingly price competitive. EVs produce no tailpipe emissions, improving urban air quality. When charged with renewable electricity, they're nearly carbon neutral. They're quieter and have lower operating costs. However, challenges remain. Charging infrastructure needs expansion. Battery production requires materials with environmental and human rights concerns. Electricity generation must become cleaner for full benefits, and range anxiety concerns buyers despite improving range. Electric vehicles demonstrate how transportation can transition away from fossil fuels. They show how sustained technology development and market support can overcome initial disadvantages. As you rest tonight, electric vehicles charge worldwide, preparing for tomorrow's emissions-free driving, representing transportation's ongoing electrification. Fact 93. Online education. Online education, from university courses to skill training, democratized access to learning while raising questions about quality and social aspects. Early distance education used correspondence courses. Internet-enabled synchronized and asynchronous online learning. MOOCs, massive open online courses, launched around 2012, offered free university courses to anyone globally. Platforms like Coursera, edX, and Khan Academy reached millions. COVID-19 accelerated online education adoption as schools and universities shifted online. Online education offers flexibility. Students learn at their own pace and schedule. It reduces costs by eliminating campus infrastructure. It reaches learners in remote areas lacking local educational institutions. However, completion rates are low compared to in-person courses. Online learning requires self-discipline. Social aspects of education, discussion, collaboration, mentorship, are harder online. Digital divides exclude those lacking internet access. Quality varies enormously. Online education demonstrates how internet can distribute knowledge globally while revealing that education involves more than content delivery. As you rest tonight, students worldwide engage in online learning, accessing education previously unavailable to them, participating in knowledge sharing that transcends geography. Fact 94. Precision medicine. Precision medicine, tailoring treatment to individual characteristics including genetics, promises more effective healthcare than one-size-fits-all approaches. Traditional medicine treats diseases similarly across patients. Precision medicine recognizes that genetic variation, environment, and lifestyle affect disease and treatment response. Cancer treatment increasingly uses genetic sequencing of tumors to identify specific mutations driving growth, then targets those mutations with specific drugs. Pharmacogenomics predicts drug responses based on genetic variants affecting metabolism. Precision medicine requires extensive data collection, analysis, and interpretation. It enables matching patients to clinical trials testing relevant treatments. However, precision medicine raises concerns: genetic information privacy, costs creating two-tier medicine, complexity overwhelming patients and physicians, and uncertainty about what genetic information means. Precision medicine demonstrates how accumulated biological knowledge enables individualized care. It shows medicine moving from empirical observation to molecular understanding. As you rest tonight, your unique biology influences how you respond to various treatments, and precision medicine aims to leverage that uniqueness for better outcomes. Fact 95. Social media platforms. Social media platforms, connecting billions worldwide, transformed communication, politics, and society in ways still unfolding. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and others enable instant global communication and content sharing. Social media facilitated Arab Spring protests, social movements like #MeToo, and political campaigns. It enables maintaining distant relationships, finding communities of interest, and accessing diverse perspectives. However, social media also amplified misinformation, created echo chambers reinforcing existing beliefs, enabled harassment and hate speech, undermined privacy, and affected mental health particularly among youth. Algorithms optimize for engagement, often promoting divisive content. Social media's business model, monetizing attention through advertising, creates incentives misaligned with user well-being. Platform moderation struggles to balance free expression and preventing harm. Social media demonstrates how communication technologies reshape public discourse and social organization. It shows how network effects create powerful platforms whose influence raises governance questions. As you rest tonight, billions worldwide use social media, connecting, arguing, sharing, in a global conversation that defines modern civilization's increasingly interconnected nature. Fact 96. Gene therapy. Gene therapy, treating disease by introducing, removing, or modifying genetic material, offers potential cures for previously untreatable conditions. Early gene therapy attempts in the 1990s-2000s had limited success and some tragedies. Recent advances achieved remarkable results, treating inherited blindness, curing some genetic immune disorders, and promising treatments for hemophilia and sickle cell disease. Gene therapy can replace defective genes, inactivate disease-causing genes, or introduce new genes fighting disease. It requires sophisticated delivery systems. Modified viruses often carry therapeutic genes into cells. Some gene therapies cure diseases with single treatments rather than requiring lifelong medication. However, gene therapy is extraordinarily expensive. Some treatments cost millions of dollars, raising access and equity concerns. Long-term effects aren't fully known. Gene therapy demonstrates how understanding diseases at genetic level enables interventions addressing root causes rather than just symptoms. It shows medicine's increasing capability to modify biological systems fundamentally. As you rest tonight, gene therapy patients worldwide live with corrected genetic code, representing medicine's frontier where molecular interventions cure previously incurable conditions. Fact 97. Vertical farming. Vertical farming, growing crops in stacked layers indoors with controlled environment, offers food production independent of weather and seasons. Traditional agriculture requires large land areas and favorable climate. Vertical farms use LED lighting, hydroponics or aeroponics, and climate control to grow food year-round in warehouses or purpose-built facilities. They use far less water than conventional farming, no pesticides, and can be located near cities, reducing transportation. Yields per acre far exceed traditional farming. Vertical farming offers food security in harsh climates and growing urban populations. However, energy costs for lighting remain significant. Vertical farming only makes environmental sense with renewable electricity. Limited crops are economically viable. Lettuce and herbs work better than wheat or corn. Capital costs are substantial. Vertical farming demonstrates agriculture's technological frontier, though it won't replace traditional farming. It shows how controlled environment agriculture might supplement conventional farming. As you rest tonight, vertical farms worldwide grow food under LED lights, representing agriculture's evolution from ancient sunlight dependence toward technology-controlled growing. Fact 98. Universal Basic Income Experiments. Universal Basic Income Experiments, providing regular unconditional cash to all citizens, test whether direct cash transfers address poverty and economic insecurity. Traditional welfare provides conditional support, unemployment insurance requires job search, food stamps restrict purchases. UBI provides cash without conditions, trusting recipients to meet their own needs. Proponents argue UBI addresses automation displacing workers, simplifies bureaucracy, respects recipient dignity, and enables entrepreneurship and education by providing security. Critics worry it's unaffordable, might reduce work incentive, and could be used to eliminate other safety nets. Pilot programs in Kenya, Finland, and Stockton, California tested UBI's effects. Results show modest positive effects, improved health and well-being, some increased entrepreneurship, minimal work reduction. However, pilots are limited in scale and duration. True UBI's effects might differ. UBI demonstrates civilization wrestling with how to provide economic security in changing economies. It shows debates about human nature, social responsibility, and economic organization. As you rest tonight, UBI recipients in various pilots spend their unconditional income, participating in experiments testing whether direct cash transfers can improve lives and economies. Fact 99, Ocean Cleanup. Ocean plastic cleanup initiatives attempt to address the massive pollution accumulating in oceans. Millions of tons of plastic enter oceans annually, accumulating in garbage patches and harming marine life. Ocean Cleanup Project, founded by Boyan Slat in 2013, developed systems to collect plastic from the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Floating barriers funnel plastic to collection points. Other initiatives intercept plastic in rivers before reaching oceans or develop ocean-degradable plastics. However, cleanup addresses symptoms rather than causes. Plastic continues entering oceans. Prevention through reducing plastic use, improving waste management, and developing alternatives is necessary. Ocean cleanup demonstrates civilization attempting to address environmental damage from previous choices. It shows how problems created by convenience require expensive, difficult remediation. As you rest tonight, ocean cleanup efforts continue, representing civilization's dawning recognition that environmental stewardship requires not just preventing future damage but addressing accumulated harm. Fact 100, Artificial photosynthesis. Artificial photosynthesis, mimicking plants' ability to convert sunlight, water, and CO2 into fuel, could provide clean energy while reducing atmospheric carbon. Natural photosynthesis powers all plant life, converting solar energy into chemical bonds. Scientists work to recreate this process artificially, splitting water into hydrogen and oxygen using sunlight, or converting CO2 into useful fuels. Success would provide solar fuels, liquid fuels storing solar energy in chemical form, solving renewable energy storage problem. It could also remove CO2 from atmosphere, addressing climate change. However, artificial photosynthesis remains inefficient compared to natural photosynthesis, which itself is only 1 to 2% efficient. Research continues improving catalysts, light absorption, and energy conversion. Artificial photosynthesis demonstrates civilization attempting to replicate natural processes through engineering. It shows how nature's solutions inspire technological development. If successful, it could transform energy and climate, providing abundant clean fuel while recycling carbon emissions. As you rest tonight, researchers worldwide work on artificial photosynthesis, attempting to capture in technology what plants do naturally, representing civilization's aspiration to solve problems through innovation inspired by nature's wisdom.